Hello and welcome to our 2024 AI Revenue Summit. Super excited to have everybody joining us. Thank you so much for cutting some time out of your busy day to join us here for this event, where we're going to be having over 25 plus speakers with several dozens of award winners to announce, live sessions and pre-recorded sessions, all discussing from industry experts, AI, how it's being used, and what you want to be aware of. So with that said, let me start off with a couple introductions here. So I am Pete Ketchum. Together with Signals, a digital marketing platform that helps identify digital buying signals for potential buyers, we will be your host. This is our second biannual event for the AI Revenue Summit, with over 3,000 participants, and we expect hundreds of you to be logging in live today as we begin our broadcast of this presentation of the summit. With that said, let's get some housekeeping items in place before we introduce our keynote speakers. So first off, we want to give out a huge shout out and thank you to the many speakers and that have taken time to prepare both for these live sessions and the ones that are pre-recorded. There's a lot of work and effort put in behind the coordination and the insights that they're delivering. A special shout out to those Outreach, Jasper, Demand Base, Green Hat, and many, many more of these amazing companies that came together and helped provide the content that you'll be hearing and seeing today. So what you can expect if this is your first time attending one of these live events is that we'll be going through we'll see our live sessions. Now, we're starting with our Pacific time, so taking that into account, we'll be hearing approximately at 9:15 from our keynote speakers, David Elkington and Professor James Oldroyd. And then at 10 o'clock, we'll hear from Ashley Gross, CEO, and Joan Jenkins, and then Eric Zion, Brian McCarson, and Todd Alsup. So those are our live sessions. Now, next we'll be having during the day, so at 10 o'clock, we'll be releasing one block of pre-recorded speakers, and then we'll be releasing that second block. So in this first block, you'll have the one panel discussion and these additional three speakers joining us and sharing the insights. And then at 11 o'clock, we'll be releasing that final block of pre-recorded presentations with a panel discussion. Now, we've had a really great turnout on these awards. This is among the most nominated pool of nominees that we've had, for the award session. As I get my notes here, I have to check the numbers again because I knew they're quite high. So we had over 70 individuals that were nominated by committee in these four categories, which include thought leadership, innovators, strategists, and trailblazers. And it set the record for the most votes. Believe it or not, we had 3,500 votes in total, and it appears to be surpassing of those that participated, nominated those folks that they felt best fit the description of the category that they were in. Many of our nominees and our winners received 500 plus votes. So just an outstanding number of participation from everybody, all of you giving your voice and your backing to support those that are really leading the way in the industry, providing value, education, and giving that guidance to the rest of the industry. So without further ado, we'll go in and congratulate all of our nominees. We really appreciate your participation and sportsmanship and generating and sharing the event and the nominations that you were a part of. And for our top 5 winners of the AI Thought Leader, we have Jenny Pollock, Madhu Bora, Wendy Williams, Edward Morris, and Nathan Burke. To all of you, congratulations. We appreciate all that you do in the industry. Under our AI Innovator category, we have April Beverly, Awa Penn, Ashley Gross, Anders Jensen, and Aaron Reddick. Again, congratulations, and thank you for your efforts and information you put out to the community. For our third category, our AI strategists, we have Tom Keefe, Pallavi Sharma, Jennifer Ives, Vivek Muruganandam, and Sean Sweeney. Again, congratulations. Thank you for your participation and willingness to join us in the AI Revenue Summit. And for our final category, we have our AI Trailblazers, Ruth Lazo, April Duani, Eugenia Jordan, Claire Farewell, and Heather Murray. Again, congratulations. As you can see, these were our top 5 participants, nominee winners of each of the categories. You'll hear more about that through the AI Revenue Summit links, and which you'll find on LinkedIn at the AI Revenue Summit LinkedIn group. You can join that, learn more about the nominees, the speakers. You'll see more about some of the studies and information that has been found that will be shared some more in our keynote as we go. So as we wait, we will introduce soon our keynote speakers here momentarily. Okay, excellent. So allow me to introduce our 2 next speakers as they're coming on. So we have for keynote featuring Dr. James Oldroyd, and we will welcome him and David Elkington to the stage here. Welcome. So as I was saying, Dr. James Oldroyd, Associate Professor of Strategy at BYU's Marriott School of Management, and the Ford Motor Richard Cook Research Fellow. James is being joined by Dave Elkington, founder of Inside Sales and Utah Silicon Slopes, who will introduce us a little further here. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to hearing what you have to present.
Perfect. Yep. Thanks for the intro, Pete. And we're excited to share some new research. So Jim and I, and probably 10 years back, I believe, did a lot of research around trying to understand the value of marketing MQLs as they begin to cool off, or based on how hot they are. We called it the lead response management study. It was published in HBR, in Sloan. It was on really New York Times and Wall Street Journal. When Pete and I were speaking about this event, and we thought it'd be really interesting to do some research around understanding impact and basically where we're at in the industry in terms of using AI in our go-to-market activities. And so that's what Jim, Professor Oldroyd, today is presenting, is the development and kind of the adoption of AI in different go-to-market activities. And so this is a very exhaustive study. You guys are the first to hear the results of this study. So this is like hot off the press. I believe, your team, Jim, were prepping information late last night and early this morning. We have well over 500 people engaged in the study. It's an ongoing study. And so I think we're going to continue to learn more, but we have enough data that you feel as though we should be able to have really good results, and we should be able to kind of share some really interesting insights. So give us a little bit of background on like what you were trying to solve as you were putting this study together, and then let's get into it.
So this is I think one of the first studies to specifically look at the sales space and AI. There's been lots of studies done looking at AI in general. We know there's AI is obviously the hottest topic in business right now, and so this I think this is one of the first to look specifically at what are people doing, in this study we were interested in not only what people are actually doing, but what they intend to do. So what would be the ideal, and so we're looking at across the whole revenue space, how is AI being used, and how is that driving success or results there.
And the thing I think everyone who's listening now, I think the thing that you're going to find the most value out of is as we did the study, we compared against people at different levels of growth rate. So we looked at all the way from a negative 30% growth rate all the way to a positive plus 30% growth rate. And we looked at it in 5% increments. And then we ran lots of regression and analysis to say what behaviors, what use of AI is associated with higher growing companies versus lower growing companies. So what you're going to get out of the study today, and I think it's going to be super fascinating, is you're going to be able to say, first, where is the market really at? Because there's so much hype. Mm-hmm. There's so much baloney of, there's all these, I don't know, Instagram anecdotes where someone's like, I am making $50,000 a month doing nothing, having AI work for me. And I think what we're going to find today is it's not real. This is all hype. We're in the infancy stage of AI as it's being used in the B2B go-to-market funnel. I mean, that's really what we found out of the day.
And as it always is, the study shows that this is harder than, this is hard work. Like anything of value, it's hard work for firms.
So kind of key findings, and let's just dig right into it. But key findings are, we're in like the first stage of the first inning in the adoption and use and kind of value creation of AI in the B2B space, in kind of go-to-market activities. And that in general, so I guess the good news to that is there is lots of opportunity. If you want to be an innovator, if you're a consultant, if you're a CMO, if you're a sales rep, there's an opportunity for you to basically get ahead of everybody by applying some of the learnings that you're going to hear today, and really trying to be on the leading edge of how to use this stuff. So let's go right now. Pete, if you can present our slides. I'm not quite sure how to do that here. There we go. Okay, so again, largest study of its kind. I think it's the first dedicated analysis of how AI is being used in go-to-market. So I'll do some intro, and then Jim, I'd love to get your insights. So the first thing is just AI adoption by where it is in the adoption in kind of the evolution or the development of AI. And so there's really 4 buckets. People are using, People are using AI for 4 key things, basically, as they're getting further and more sophisticated in the use. So, and this is where we found 81% of respondents believe that their organization are basically in this first 1 or 2 stages. And let's be clear what it is. Number 1, people are using AI to summarize information. So they're taking reports and saying, ChatGPT, summarize this for me so I don't have to read 80 pages. I can read 2 paragraphs. They're also using it to then write basic content. So they're saying, write an email for me, but it's all ideation, summarization, and then basic interpretation. And that's the purple column that you're looking at. So it's either summarization, basic interpretation, and then the last 2 columns that pretty much nobody is really doing, very few people are really automating their funnel. So, Professor Older, explain to us, where you see the market is at and where do you think it's going?
Yeah, so I think these are 4 clear stages that of evolution that we'll see eventually in the sales, and as we look at automation in marketing and sales. we're clearly in the beginning here. I mean, it's, so from the survey, we realized that, in fact, we'll show you data here in a minute, that we're just beginning. So like, we're really at stage one. There's a few firms that have moved on to stage two, but so I know there's a lot of companies, a lot of executives I've talked to who are out there thinking, I feel like we're behind. I feel like we're behind. And I think that one of the results of the survey is you're probably not behind. You're also having the same anxiety that everyone else is having in trying to figure out what is AI going to mean for the, my organization specifically, but also what does it mean, in general. And the results are clear, showing that we're just at the beginning here. We're at the beginning of
well, and you referenced something I really like. I think there's so much FOMO in the market right now. In fact, it's gonna vet out as we show more of the slides. But there's so much fear that, and in fact, we explicitly ask some of these questions. But there's so much fear that one of your competitors is doing something that you're not. That there's a little bit of franticness and urgency that probably doesn't need to be actually felt. So, okay, I'm gonna hit the next slide because we have quite a bit of data and I want to move through it. So the context here is the adoption. By size is companies that are larger are actually adopting slower, and companies that are smaller are adopting faster. So, 100 million to 500 million plus in revenue seem to have a much lower adoption rate. Give me your sense on that, Professor Oldroyd.
Yeah, so I mean, this is perhaps unsurprising. Technologies, Clayton Christensen's work on disruption shows that smaller firms are more agile, more likely to adopt new technologies. Larger firms are slower to adopt new technologies. To me, this is perhaps unsurprising. If I have a massive organization where we have had, processes in place for a decade, and then new technology comes out like AI, we're probably going to be a little slower to use this. So it's perhaps unsurprising.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I think people should experience as you're reading this or hearing this, is if you're a larger company, you probably have a little more time to get your ducks in a row.
Well, and I would say, like, one of the takeaways from this is, if I'm a large organization, rather than trying to roll out AI across the whole thing, I might want to carve off a specific instance or segment within my organization where we can experiment with AI and learn, and then roll that out. So rather than thinking of this as a monolithic adoption of AI, I think one of the takeaways is, if I'm a large organization, figure out space where you can innovate with AI, experiment with AI, and then scale that.
That's right. And again, I would say if you're a smaller company, I would look at technologies and tools that you can iterate very, very quickly. Large companies naturally have a slower buying cycle, and so it's very difficult to get these kind of technologies through InfoSec and through data security and things like that. So I would say if you're a smaller company, take advantage of your ability to be nimble and try things, and try them quickly. And if they work, obviously expand them. If they don't, drop them fast. So use your ability to buy and evaluate quicker than larger companies to your advantage. Okay, the next one is the leadership's perception of the cost of AI. This one was really interesting.
Surprising.
Yeah, it's really surprising. ROI and I would say increased revenue was not the primary driver for adoption. And this is across different company sizes. This was across different title levels, but mostly senior leadership really care about really data quality. I guess the biggest barrier is the quality of the data, and the security of the data is by far the biggest concern. However, more junior management, they're more concerned about cost. So senior people, I guess, as I think about it, it kind of is intuitive. Senior leadership are worried about the liability of AI. Junior leadership is more concerned about the cost of AI. And almost nobody is really focused on, like, hey, what are the outcome or the results of AI?
Yeah, and so to me, what that signals is that there's a lot of apprehension and fear, and not a lot of everyone's afraid they're going to miss something, but they don't know what the something is. And so they're chasing this fear, like you said, the fear of missing out without understanding, like without being strategic in this. So, this, I'm a strategy professor. This to me is saying that AI and its instances are missing strategy, because it's not about, how can I drive revenue. It's not about even what does this cost for me as a firm. This is about I'm late to a party and I feel like I'm missing out, and it's going to have massive ramifications for me, but you're not even sure what those ramifications might be yet. So again, indicates we're still early in, if we're looking at how AI is going to impact organizations, particularly, with their go-to-market, we're still very early, because people aren't saying, oh, I know I'm going to miss, a massive increase in revenue, or my ROI is going to go through we're just not even worried about that yet.
It's all risk mitigation is where we're kind of at within kind of this B2B space. All right, let's look at the top challenges. So 57, and I mentioned this a slide or two ago, 57% of execs think, now there's a type error here, but data quality is the top challenge. The reason they're not deploying AI, when they're not deploying AI, is because their data is not good. And I'll give you an interesting example. There's a company I spoke with that I advise with, and their biggest issue is, one, getting access to their data. There's there's so many silos of data that are in legacy technologies, that getting access to that and then kind of piping that into the different systems that allow, generative AI to create value and content and strategy, that I mean, in particular, the company I was talking to, people will appreciate this who are a little bit older on this presentation today. It's an AS400 system. There's a ton of data in these old legacy systems like AS400, old Siebel systems, that they can't actually get access to, or the quality of it is just not very good. And so those silos of data are actually currently the biggest challenge to getting AI deployed.
Yeah, and it's the analogy would be, we're using a quarter of our brain instead of the full, so if we don't have the AI is trained on data. So the better the data and the volume of data and the data integrity, the better AI is going to work. And so, these are significant issues. To me, also, this again highlights these are how do I execute problems, not what does this cost? Do we have the skill to do it? So to me, it's like we're at the starting line and we're like, I can't even start yet.
Yeah.
The costs and the lack of skill and things that I think will become significant challenges down the road aren't even a problem yet, because we're still tying our shoes before the race.
That totally makes sense. All right, I'm going to keep pushing us along. The decision factors that are influencing AI investment. So again, improved data privacy is the thing that will really drive more adoption. We talked about this a minute ago, but what we're also seeing in some of the people we spoke to in the survey is, and Professor Older, I know you do lots of consulting with companies around this, but companies don't want to intermingle their data with broad data. So as they deploy technologies, different AI technologies, what they want to be able to do is basically have the models trained off of their own data sets, and then optimize against their own data sets. Go ahead, you have a thought.
I think there's wisdom in this, right? If you look at it, one of the most valuable resources as we shift to an AI era will be, what data do I have to train? What's the training data for the AI model? And so I think companies that are going to win are those that have better AI. And this isn't something new. Netflix beat Blockbuster and then beat HBO because they had better data. So I think that data, Herbert Simon said in the 1950s, we've become an age where information is ubiquitous. Now it's, can I get the right attention on things? And I think he's right. we have limited. If I can gather attention, understand attention or data, I'm going to win. It's whoever has the best data, the best. So models are going to be very similar across organizations. It's going to be really trained on. That's going to be who wins.
So the best practice, if you're listening today, is go find out where your silos of data within your organization and think first-party data. So what I mean by that is, don't worry about the generic data that's out on the web, social media data, GPT data. Think about data in your CRM. Think about data in, behavioral data on your website as your prospects and your customers are engaging on your brands. Think about data if you have a technology that you guys sell. Think about the data that you're storing within your technology. Any way that
So can I just that's so important, because I think that everyone is throwing away so much good data. They're just literally. I was working with an organization recently where they didn't even have. They had access to, but weren't collecting a key piece of data. So it was a recruiting company, and they weren't getting data on were the people actually hired, like the key piece of data. They could easily get that data. They just weren't thinking ahead. So to me, as Dave just mentioned, every click, everything going on, you should be assuming that that's going to be important. And the truth is it will. If we look at who's doing this well, it's sports. Every acceleration of a football player, every time they move, literally we know minute behavioral data on athletes, and because of that we're very good at building teams. Right now we're at a very kind of, I would say, high level. Instead of digging, winning in the future is going to be having better data.
There's a guy named Nate Silver who I had hired to speak at one of my events, who does lots of prediction around basically sports, stock market, airlines. And I asked him, I'm like, why, those don't make sense. Why do you do analysis around those? And he said, the data is so clean. Mm-hmm. And so as you think about putting your salespeople on the road, or all of your email campaigns and marketing, really focus on not just collecting it in a way that you can get access to it, but really think about the outcome of those results. Because the way AI can optimize this is it'll say, this is the behavior and this is the outcome. Let's find correlation between behavior that drives the kind of outcome we want. So make sure you're capturing your data in a way that meaningfully allows you to run these models.
And you can get access. I mean, so just going back, HBO used to use Nielsen's or whatever to find out what people were watching. Netflix had direct access to what people, when did they stop? When did they rewind? When did they fast forward? When did they, abandon a movie? And with that data, they thought they could build better content than other, having never built content. They're like, we know which content's actually going to do better than even HBO.
Right.
And again, it's
more granular real-time data.
That's exactly right.
All right, let's jump into industry. So basically, use this as benchmarking. So again, as you're sitting here listening, this should tell you where you stand. 65% of the following industries say they regularly or always use AI in their go-to-market in some place. So it's IT, which makes sense. So think technology, software, companies like that, business services, financial services, and insurance industries. Those industries are high adopters of AI. The laggards right now are healthcare, education, and manufacturing. And I mean, it makes sense to me. Those are intuitive. Those are generally early adopters of new tech and laggards of new tech.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, frankly, as much as there's hype around this, so the reality is AI is going to dramatically reduce costs and dramatically improve differentiation of firms. And so it's going to happen. You can pretend like it's not going to happen, but every industry is going to be significantly impacted by AI.
But if you're looking at this chart, I mean, look at the healthcare line right here, where it's again, in healthcare, 65% of people in healthcare they say they never use AI. And then the remainers say they rarely use AI. So these are industries that I think if you're in, maybe just catch your breath a little bit. It's okay if you're not doing it right now, because again, there's so much FOMO. If you're not doing it, you're probably okay.
Or just lead, right? Lead out.
Or lead. That's right.
Like start the experimentation. I think everyone thinks that I have to have the solution built before I start, and I think with AI, it's going to be a lot of experimentation and learning along the way.
And I want to go back. Think when we say where AI usage is happening, it's two things. I'll call it three. They're using it to ideate. They use AI to get ideas, and then they go do something on their own, or they use it to summarize information, and then they make decisions based off of it, or they try and get a little bit of interpretation or meaning out of it. So they look for some correlation out of it. What you're going to see here, very few people are actually automating, kind of blind automation and trusting AI. So I'm going to push forward. Excuse me. This content gets, I think, really interesting. What we're finding here is we looked into the kind of the kind of activities, the kind of content people are using AI to generate. And so we looked at marketing content and we looked at sales enablement content, kind of the two primary content drivers for go-to-market. And this is what we found. Professor Oldroyd, like kind of what was the summary?
So I mean, to me, so if you're looking at this chart, so we're looking at blogs, videos, all the way across to social media posts, and you can just follow that green line. It's amazing that it stays quite high until you get to emails and social media. So I think people are starting to figure it out. I can have AI draft an email, trust that email is going to be good enough, and send it out. Podcasts, I'm not going to have it do a podcast for me. I'm not going to, so I mean, we just see here there's a but the other thing I'll emphasize is that the orange always, look how thin that is, almost all the way across. I know that there's people out there, I've missed the AI, I've missed it. And the reality is no, you haven't.
No one is doing it.
We're just at the beginning of this.
That's right. And I think the general finding from this is when credibility really matters. So think testimonials, reviews, white papers, or when I'm presenting in person, like strangely enough, we used almost no AI. I don't know that we used any AI to summarize or to generate the results of this study. Because this is like credibility, and you wanted to make sure it's highly.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable. Like AI, you don't know if it's going to be 100% accurate, and we wanted 100% accuracy in this.
So it's, again, I think if you're listening to this, start thinking about using it for these three areas: for email generation or even ideation. Have it do a draft of your email. That was one thing we saw a lot of feedback in the respondents. For social media and for generating concepts around infographics.
And I would just push a little bit and say, try it for everything. Try it for case studies. But be much more vigilant on those, I think, because the implications of incorrect are higher.
And I was just reminded by the producers here. They said if you have questions, go ahead and post them in the live chat, and then they will be then posted to us. So as we're presenting any of this data, if you have any questions, please post the questions, and then they'll provide feedback. All right, so let's push forward.
That's great.
So this was interesting. This was something you'd had the researchers do, Professor Oldroyd. So we looked at what people are currently doing, and then what they want to do.
Yeah, the ideal state, right? So here's what our current behavior is, and we assumed that wouldn't be as good as what the ideal. To me, what was shocking is that even the desired is still we're never going to use it there. So to me, what that says is that there's a lot of people missing the vision of AI. They literally just don't get it. The fact that it's not like I'm always going to use AI. I'm gonna have a sufficient AI tool to help me do all of my emails. It's shocking to me that. But again, I think that's indicative that we're really early in this, and people haven't seen it. So those who have seen it are probably like, this is going to change the world. Everyone else is kind of wondering, is it going to change the world? The answer is it's going to change the world. I was shocked that the ideal state was like a lot of.
It was, I mean, just to put a fine point on it, the orange line, I'm going to go up a slide and just compare those orange lines. This is people who currently are always using AI for these activities. And this is people who think, boy, in a perfect world, this is where I would always be using AI. And it's nearly the same. So basically,
it's 40% of companies or respondents here are now 20 to 40% are saying, I'm going to sometimes, or I'm going to often or always use it. That should be, I thought, just naively, before this study, I thought that would be 90% always or often.
So just I'm going to compare. I mean, there's a little difference.
There's not as much movement as I thought. That's for sure.
Okay, so moving forward, now the same analysis in sales enablement. So this is content used to support your sales, kind of think marketing, mid-top funnel, sales, mid-lower funnel.
And basically what we're seeing here is that, if it's a cold call email scripts, that's when we're seeing people doing more of it. Sales scripts, so those kind of things. But again, the thing that I want you to focus on is that always line, and always and often line. You can see that. I mean, this is just, we're very
thin. Razor thin, right? So again, the point is, no one is really using it on a regular basis. So again, everybody take a huge sigh of relief. You're not behind anybody else. This, again, there's enough data. There's lots of statistical significance in the results of this data. So people are using it.
So and then to put the fear back into you, so I can give you a few antidotes of organizations that have figured it out, and what they're doing it's quite astounding, actually. So what Dave's saying is true. Take a deep breath, realize you're probably okay, and then dig in and get to work, because those that have figured it out are they're gonna win. Frankly, they're just gonna win.
And if you're feeling anxious, the areas that everybody else are. Oh, my desk moved on me. The area that people are using this for are cold calling, email scripts, sales scripts, and competitor analysis. That's where it is being used. Where people are not using it are win-loss stories, battle cards, sales playbooks. And as a general rule, there's some interesting so the first half of this study is really observational data. We're going to get into the correlation and the regression. And there's some contradiction to what people are doing versus what is working. So but just remember, this is what people are at least claiming that they're doing right now. So now this is the gap between these two. This is what the ideal scenario they would use for sales enablement content. I'm going to just flip again between these so people can see the change. Similarly, that orange line, it doesn't really change. So this reinforces your point. Share kind of your thought on this.
Yeah. So again, I think it just shows that even with sales enablement behaviors, that we still there's still not a lot of vision there. Like people are like, often or always I might use it. But so this was, again, before starting the study, I would have thought this would have been much higher. And Pete just put a question in which says many employees are using AI to summarize and for ideas, as you said, but a lot of it is one-off usage. What ideas do you have on implementing AI in a scalable and intelligent way? And to me, that's exactly what this data is showing, is nobody knows how to do it often or always. They're like, if I think about it, I'll rarely or sometimes or never, do this. That is the difference. It's always the difference. Whoever can figure out how to institutionalize, as we say in academic terms, how we can institutionalize a process, a lot of people understood just in time was a great thing to do. Toyota figured out how to institutionalize it. That's why they won. And so, what ideas do I have for implementing AI in a scalable, intelligent way? Like, if I took nothing else away from this, or from your summit today, if you can figure that out, you win. Like that is the primary challenge. How do I do this in a scalable, intelligent way where it's now I'm always or often doing it? Right now, the default is I don't do it and I might try it. What if the default was it happens and then I go evaluate it? I think that's how you do it.
That's a great next step.
You make it the default is I use AI, and then I can always back away from it. So,
and I want to pile on here. So one of the lessons I would take from this, though, is going to that slide where in those 4 stages of AI adoption, ideation and summarization, and then really kind of basically meaning extrapolation. You should be doing that constantly. In fact, I think Tamara just asked, what about prospect research? Or would it follow in one of these categories? So it actually was not one of the questions we asked. It's an interesting point, which I think we will add to the next survey. We're going to do this on a quarterly basis. Yep, it's a really good point. But I guess to your point, using it for research and summarization should be the default for everybody listening to this. So whether you're using a premium GPT license or something else, I would, anytime you've got significant content to read or information about a prospect, you should be using, putting all of that into some sort of large language model and say, summarize this and give me kind of the 3 key bullet points. Using it before phone calls, like cold calling or things like that. So the point of that is you're not trying to completely automate the process. You are summarizing, you're educating your sellers, your marketers, and allowing them to be way more informed at a hugely abbreviated time frame. So Tamara, it's a really good question. I'm going to push us.
We'll get it.
Yep. Next slide. Usage in the funnel progression. So this was a really interesting question. At what stage, top of funnel, mid funnel, or bottom of funnel?
So again, just to highlight here, what we're trying to do is we're trying to cut the data multiple ways to see if maybe people aren't thinking about it as activities in the sales enablement process, but they're thinking about it as, am I top of funnel or bottom of funnel or mid funnel? And the data is the same, the answer is the same. So in other words, they're still not doing it.
Basically, 65% of people say they want to start using it somewhere in the funnel. So again, it's another slice of the same content.
Yeah, and again, when we ask, so here's the state and the desired state, you can see we get up to 30-40% of people are like, yeah, I will often or sometimes use it. But so very consistent results across whether we're looking at marketing, sales, or we slice it a different way, looking across the funnel. It's just telling us the same story.
That's right.
Which is, we kind of think we should do it, but we don't. There's no vision.
We're not sure. Where do we start? And here's the same. This is another slice of the same thing. We're saying in that funnel progression, where do they want to use it? Now, this is interesting because there is a much higher desire to begin to use it in the funnel. Whereas when we ask that question in terms of specific either sales and marketing content, I think people basically are like, we're good. I don't really know where to go with it. There is a clear difference here where people are saying, we definitely want to use it more in our funnel. But again, integration, data quality, just how to do it, skill, there's a big gap in that right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna. So this now we're moving. Oh, we're not quite there. This one, what we looked at in these 3 areas, and this is just like for you to say, okay, what are some things I can do? This is the desired versus current, meaning what's the gap? What are the biggest gaps between what people currently are doing and people are at least claiming or stating that they would like to do?
And can I emphasize what this is really saying is, so if you think about here's where I am, here's the ideal. The ideal means that we actually have a vision on what it could be. And so these are things that people understand but aren't quite yet there. Though all the stuff on the bottom is saying, wow, we don't even know. We don't even have a vision yet of what could possibly look like. And that's just part of it, because so as industries matures, as AI gets into this, we'll find more narratives on how you should be using it, and then we as users will understand it better, and where we're at to the ideal will actually increase, not decrease, because we'll be like, oh, I see the vision of where I could be.
Like if you're a consultant, if you're building a product, these are the areas you should be thinking about, because this is where the gap is. This is where people are saying it's not ready yet, but this is definitely what we'd like. So
That's right.
Marketing, you see how-to guides, paid ad content, newsletters, infographics. That's an area where people think the market is going. Let's hit the next one. Sales content, very similar. Sales playbooks, competitor analysis, sales presentations, and solution briefs. So this is, again, what we're not doing for AI, but people believe we want to do. I mean, it's really your same principle here.
Yeah, I mean, and these are things that people are like, wow, I know I'm not quite there yet, versus so these might be easier things to sell. Here's your gap, let's fix it.
And again, the bottom of this represents, these are the areas where like, okay, we're using it and we don't really know where to go next, or we're not using it and we don't know where to go with this stuff. So there's a lot. One thing I heard you as you were prepping and analyzing the research, one thing you shared is, boy, people are not sure. There's a lot of confusion in the market. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of fear, but there's not a lot of concrete vision.
It reminds me of so I show how old I am, but in 1999, 2001 was the .com craze. And it was like, if you don't figure out this internet thing, you're gonna be gone. And like the same rhetoric is going on now. And the reality is they were right. Like if you didn't figure out the online thing, you were gone.
Well, let me pile on a story. So I was in 1999. I was sitting in the back of I was an investment banker analyst. So I was like at the very bottom of that stack, which means I got coffee and picked up people's laundries and made pitch books. But I was sitting in the back of a Jeff Bezos presentation that our bank was involved in, and he was sharing something. This is the CEO of Amazon. They were a bookstore at the time, but he was sharing kind of his vision of the future, how he's going to be much, much more than a bookstore. He's going to be, he's going to help kind of raise the level of internet. And again, I was naive, sitting in the back of the room thinking, this guy's a ding dong.
Turns out he was right. You were
he has the last laugh on this. But your point is, the next generation of people who change the world are going to figure out and build a vision for the future. And that's really what's needed right now in AI.
Yep.
Okay. Last slide on this comparison is that funnel where people are automating using AI in the funnel, the areas they want most help. Interestingly, the very, very top and the very, very bottom. So meaning interest generation. So this is like kind of demand gen, creating clicks, creating awareness and interest. And then the very bottom in retention, renewal, kind of customer satisfaction stuff. So those are the areas where it's probably the least adopted and people believe it's going to go. I mean, again, to me, it was fascinating. That was the very top and the very bottom. Now we're in the regression stage. So yeah. This becomes really interesting. So Professor, walk us through.
Yeah, what I was trying to do here is take sales growth of firms and try to predict what's driving sales growth of firms using these AI questions. So, so basically, like these data we're going to present here are now things that are. So I actually include both statistically significant and non-statistically significant. I'll show you which are statistically significant and which aren't. But what I also want you to pay attention to is the magnitude of these. So infographics, social media posts have a statistically significant effect on sales growth of firms. And again, I'm controlling for size of the firm. I'm controlling for the revenue of the firm. I'm controlling for what they say is their AI use case. So how good are they at using AI? So I'm trying to pull out as many things as I can and just isolate it on, okay, we have growth of the firm and we have AI use. and I'm clustering errors at the industry level here, so that shouldn't be a factor. Anyway, so what we see is that infographics and social media posts are basically giving you a 2.8% increase in growth and a 2% increase in growth. Like if you're doing, if you are doing better at AI in those.
So this, I got to make sure everybody understands what you're sharing. Companies that are using these tools are growing that percent faster than companies that are not using this. So
and just to even put a finer point on it, if I move from sometimes to, or I move from frequently to always, that's what we're looking at. So like theoretically, if I move from never using to like using it all the time, that would be like a 10% increase in my growth of the firm. Now, that's a lot, and it's probably true.
And so again, the first half is informational of this study. It's like, okay, that's interesting. I can benchmark. I'm in this industry. I'm this title level. These are the kind of behaviors where, or I'm in sales, or I'm in marketing, or I'm in customer, renewal or success. This stuff is actually the real takeaway. So again, as an action item, if you're not using AI for these kinds of things, then I think if you're going to experiment, fiddle around with these kind of things.
That's exactly the takeaway is these seem to have a large, and again, so what you're looking for here is larger coefficients. So the number's bigger. And so we look at things as economically significant. In other words, they have an impact on the outcome that we're looking for, which in this case is growth, be that positive or negative. And then we look at, is it statistically significant? And statistical significance has to do with what's the sample size, how tight is the confidence interval, the people answering around it, how much variance there is. And so these are things that you should focus on, as Dave mentioned.
Now, we did have a question I want to hit. The question was, with all these AI tools out there, how do you think we can adopt AI tech without overcomplicating our tech stack and mitigating risk on those tools that are relatively new? Okay, this is just an opinion from we'll call it an informed opinion, but I think I would be careful on tools that are over automating your tech stack using AI. So if it's something that's saying, hey, we're going to automatically write this email and send it on your behalf, that feels too early. Now, again, testing something in a silo where it doesn't affect your overall stack, that's not a bad idea. So if you have the energy and the resources to test something that does do that, like I'm not saying you shouldn't, but in terms of where the market is at, what the market is saying is working and is not working, so look at things that are more in the ideation and summarization stage versus full automation.
So as a scientist, as an academic, to me, the answer to that question is very easy. It's called testing. And it's like, so right now we assume that humans are correct. And I think they're actually pretty bad at this. So like a lot of the research I've done shows just how bad sales reps are in responding to leads, and just how, so we're not good at this. Like for me, what I would love to see is you run an experiment where let's take a fully automated and run it against my best sales reps and see the difference. Like let's feed them equivalent leads and see what happens. Let's feed them equivalent prospects and see what happens.
Run some split tests.
Yeah.
Valdez, so let me interrupt. Valdez 8888 commented. It sounds there was again, we misspoke. Valdez was right. This isn't people who are using infographics and social media posts, but this is correlated to people who desire, who are saying, this is what I want to do. Again, it's a distinction. It's an important point.
Yeah, but to me, that's saying so I get it. I understand what the vision is for infographics and social media posts. At least I know what AI should be doing here.
And there was another comment a little earlier I want to bring back. Stephanie brought up the point that AI adoption ethical adoption is not a huge top of mind topic right now. It is actually not something we included in the survey. I think we will, and it is an important one.
I also think that part of that is we're just trying to figure it out. And like we don't even know what is it yet, and what would ethical be. So in some ways, I think we're just.
It's a little early to define, and I think we all have this feeling like it's easy to misrepresent. Is this a person or is this not a person? Like, I think there is a whole class of kind of the definition of ethics in AI that I know they're teaching it in schools, but I think every school teaches it differently. There's not great standards out there, but it's a good point, Stephanie. I appreciate you
to be considering it.
Yeah, we should be thinking about that. So we'll include that in the next study.
And we have lots of data here. I think the net of this regression research we did is that there are definitely parts of the marketing and sales efforts that you engage in where you probably want to engage earlier than later and might have a bigger impact. And so as you look through this data, these are the elements you should probably begin to focus on, and then maybe hit some of the other ones later on as you figure it out what those look like. So
I'm going to just hit some highlights because we're running low on time. So people who are doing cold call emails and email scripts and sales presentations have a positive correlation to growth. This is actual use. And then there's, interestingly, negative correlation. People who are currently using it for buyer personas for pricing guides and sales scripts, there's actually a negative correlation, meaning I think Professor Oldroyd, when they use it for that, companies that use it for that, it actually harms their growth rate.
That's right. And you think about it, and to me, it makes sense. Like content, I'm going to turn over. If I turn over like the actual closing here, the pricing, probably not the right thing to turn over to AI yet. I mean, maybe we'll get there eventually, but we're not there yet.
Again, just a couple of minutes. So competitor analysis has a positive correlation. Pricing guidelines, this is desired. Negative correlation. You can kind of, again, we'll make this. In fact, I think we're about there. So we talked about, again, I'm trying to hit things. This is our last slide. So I guess here's what I would say. We'll make all of these slides available for a download. We also have an infographic that will then be available on the Demand Gen Summit website, and also the signals. If you go to getsignals.ai, the infographic will be available for anybody who's participating or registered for the event. With kind of a no gate, like you don't have to fill out your information again. And then there's two other studies we're going to recommend you guys look at. McKinsey has done a study that I think is worth spending a little bit of time, as has BCG. So I think as you're thinking about go-to-market, the study that Professor Oldroyd just published in partnership with Signals, and then the McKinsey and the BCG studies. But please reach out to us. The other thing is the study is ongoing. If you want to participate or be involved in it, please reach out to Signals. We're going to put a link to where you can also complete the study, so you can be a participant in the study, and then there'll be a much more lengthy write-up. If you do participate, it'll be available to you for free at no cost. And any last thoughts, Professor Oldroyd?
No, I mean, honestly, I just wish you great luck. If you're holding back, don't. You gotta figure this out. This is the future. Lots of anecdotal evidence that this is going to fundamentally change how we go to market. And so you've got to figure it out. It's going to radically decrease your costs. It's going to radically increase revenue for firms and cause differentiation. We're still very early on. And so don't feel like you're behind. Just get to work. And anyway,
yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. And again, don't feel stress. The market is evolving. Signals will be providing this research on a regular basis. So if you want to make sure you're in the loop, please stay involved with Signals and kind of the different studies that they'll be doing on a regular basis. So thanks, Pete, for allowing us to present the data here.
Yeah, most definitely. Excellent. Thank you so much, Professor Oldroyd, Dave Elkington. Thank you for joining us, the insights and research. We look forward to hearing more about it later.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, excellent. So as you heard, you will be able to see a lot of the research findings shared in an infographic that's located at airevenuesummit.com, and it's free to download. Again, go to airevenuesummit.com, and you'll be able to access that. If you haven't already registered, registration is free just to verify your email, and then you can get that infographic. So it is 10. It is 10 a.m. Pacific time. So our first block of speakers, including those representing Jasper, Common Room, Marketing AI Institute, and Goldcast, have been released. So feel free to check those out. If you are experiencing any difficulty with viewing those presentations, you can simply just refresh your window, and they will pop up promptly. Next up, I will bring on Ashley Gross, CEO of Prompt Community. Welcome, Ashley.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I will just have to give a little intro on Ashley, CEO and founder of the Prompt Community, with a background in leading AI adoption. Ashley is a leader in AI-driven marketing, and I will turn the time over to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Yes, I am the CEO and the founder of the Prompt Community. I'm also an educator, speaker, and a million other random things. But the most important one is I started as a marketer. I was actually a marketer for 10 years. And I like to preface that with saying, I understand your pain when it comes to account-based marketing. I mean, I really understand it. So this whole entire session is packed with action strategies, prompts, and gifts just to keep the humor going for each step of my process for enhancing ABM campaigns with AI. This section is all about how smart AI tools can solve your biggest revenue problems, and I didn't think it would be fair not to talk about ABM. I would also like to mention that at no point in time am I putting any names, emails, or classified information into an LLM. That is an important disclaimer. I am still able to consolidate 3 months of ABM planning into 3 hours and maintain a high accuracy and conversion rating. So before we get into the solution, let me just emphasize the pain really quickly, because it's summertime. So maybe you've been enjoying yourself and you forgot the PTSD that comes with your usual ABM planning. So let's start with the bad. Companies love their tools. And as marketers, we have been promised for years, all of these tools will play nice and integrate accurately, but they don't. So if you have tools that I won't name across different departments with different control settings, then you probably have a good bit of unverified data regarding your target accounts. This leads to incomplete ICP scores because of fragmented data, which then leads to a broken planning process, which then slows down your time to actually launch this plan. To start understanding what's working and refining it, that is crucial, which then turns into the handoff of sales cycles taking longer. It bogs down the sales cycle. It causes further friction and misalignment between teams. Are you remembering the pain yet? Can we move on? Okay, great. So lots of people tend to forget the way we approach marketing is not the same way we approach ABM. It's actually completely different. We know who we want, and we want to start engaging with them intentionally and close them at a mutually agreed upon timeline that benefits the business as a whole. So if we don't have accurate data that is dependable, then our outreach is compromised. And what I mean by that is we were all new at some point and had a moment of reaching out to a customer without having accurate information about them and our product and our why and what kind of timeline they were on. So I'm sure we can all remember how quickly that deal ended the moment we pretended like we knew them and knew what their pain was. And it's really hard to have a bad first impression and then come back from that. So when our data is good, we can target more accurately. We can improve our content and outreach with personalization and achieve higher conversion rates. This is where having an AI first mindset comes into play. Because before you start reaching out to target accounts, you can consolidate your data and clean it without paying an arm and a leg for all of the products, again, that I'm not going to mention. And spending hours of marketing ops team across referencing the tools and the opportunities and verifying and validating that that data actually works. When you have accurate data, you can start to automate the process that you don't enjoy to help you get to the execution that you fully need to do and be responsible for. So how do we achieve this? We start by preparing our data in our CRM, exporting it, and clearing the confidential information. We use AI to provide meaningful insights that would take us a long time to find, to enrich the accounts we have, and then map out our plan. I know that last slide sounds too easy to be true, but it really is quite easy. So once we have our plan, all we need to do is actually execute that plan. And how to execute that plan is to import our CRM plan with our enriched data back into our CRM, monitor, optimize, and report on it. So what does this actually look like? So other than the obvious cost savings, why would you want to use AI to enhance your ABM plan? Well, you can improve your account targeting immediately, which reduces friction between departments. You achieve higher engagement, which means you have higher conversion rates and historical data to improve your personas, your QBRs, your win-loss reviews, and your sales CRM plan actually maps out. Maybe you only want to try this with 100 accounts and then measure the success and then incorporate your tier 2 and target 3 accounts next. So I did a little bit of talking, but I'd like to show the process to demystify any anxiety teams may have around using AI in their ABM plans. So I did this without really any AI tools, just to show you that even if I'm trying to just use one LLM, this can still extremely expedite the planning process. So I'm going to start by showing you how I export my data from HubSpot into a Google Sheet. I slimmed down the names and the emails so that my customers can remain confidential. So then I imported that HubSpot into a CSV and then into a Google Sheet, and then created a new sheet so that we could remove the first and last names and email. But the goal at the end is to import the data back into HubSpot, which is why there are multiple sheets. You're going to see one sheet with the original data and the next one that is AI powered without any of the confidential information. So now that we have a sheet with no confidential information, we're ready to leverage our first AI tool that allows us to listen in on our customers' social media channels if they are public. Okay, so the app I'm going to show you is called Awario. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay, and it looks like your own personal feed with only social posts and website material related to your company and keywords associated also with your company that you can monitor at any time. Still great, but my favorite feature is the ability to create lead alerts. So you can take your Google Sheets and import it into your Awario, and then filter your feed to be only your target accounts that have interacted with your company and or a keyword related to your company. This measures engagement on all of the social media channels, Reddit, any URLs in general. So it really catches everything. So I would filter this by my target accounts, apply the filter of the last 30 days, and then export that data and add a column to my CSV that says social summary. And then I would upload this column into my CSV, which you'll see on the next slide. So this is exactly how I did this. I basically made Awario's feed all of my target accounts related to AI or prompt engineering so that any public information that any of the employees were asking about or searching for and leaving comments on LinkedIn, URLs, like YouTube, really anywhere on the internet, I had visibility into, exported this, added it into the Google Sheet, and kept going. So this is where the prompting really begins. Here we go. Okay. So you want to upload into ChatGPT the basics of your company, which is why I'm showing you what I uploaded. I created a fake product name called Magic Meal Maker, a fake product description, brand voice and tone, and rules on how to talk about my fake company. This is all the information I had to put in. I didn't have to put anything confidential in. I just really wanted to use the Magic Meal Maker because I thought it was funny. So again, I uploaded this to ChatGPT and said, here's my information about my product. Do you understand? It says yes. I'm ready for my next prompt, which says, create a highly personalized LinkedIn DM for each individual in the CSV. The message should address the recipient by their title and company, reference what their company has been engaging with lately on social media, tie the topic into our product. And now you can see that it popped with the LinkedIn summary. So all I have to do is upload it into a CSV and add it into a column, which you are about to see now. So that's what it ends up looking like. So up next, I prompted ChatGPT to create me an email sequence of 4 emails per person, including 3 to 5 lines of text with a clear CTA. Again, requesting that it deliver the results in a column so that I can export the column into my own CSV. So now that I have 4 emails and a LinkedIn DM, it's time to map out the content that I would like to try to use to convert them. So I prompt ChatGPT to create a detailed content plan for a 3-month ABM plan. I say that the plan should include a mix of content types. I specify blogs, white papers, case studies, and videos. And once again, put it into a column so that I can add it to my CSV. This is what this looks like. So this is what our AI ABM plan looks like. It has columns for each type of content. Again, this is not the one with the confidential information in it. the topics, the umbrellas of the topics, so we can consolidate the amount of content that we need to create, but it is still personalized to the company and team member, so we know we're going to include these assets in our outreach efforts. This is what our CSV looks like right now, which means we just need to create a LinkedIn paid ad strategy and or Google, totally up to you. So the prompt that I used was to develop a strategy for LinkedIn and create a plan for designing a few compelling images that will encourage these accounts to click on the ad. I said add columns to specify the campaign objective for each ad, identify the persona for each ad, and develop the content and imagery along with the metrics we will use to measure the ad performance. The idea behind this prompt is you'll have to advocate for budget probably, and these are usually the specifics that people want to know. So once again, I had the results in the formatting of our CSV so that I could add it to my CSV sheet. So we did it. We created a 3-month ABM plan for this particular exercise. This was 5,443 contacts, and it still only took me 2 hours to do all of this. And now I'm ready to import my data back into HubSpot. So you have 2 options for importing. You can either do this manually, which I demonstrate. So I go back to the first sheet that I actually had the first name, last name, and email, and then add it to the sheet and import it into HubSpot. Or you can set up an automation. I didn't show this because I didn't want anyone to confuse AI with automations, and automations can be a learning curve at first. So I would not recommend, if you haven't ever done an automation, to start with this one. But I want to give a quick call out to the tools that I mentioned because they are providing extreme value to me in terms of ROI. So I pay $9 a month for Zekin, and this tool really is a game changer. It allows me to embed links from my website into my content so that when someone sees a Google or LinkedIn ad and they click on it, it takes them to my website and actually lets me know where their IP address is, what their customer journey to me looks like, and how they found me. And it's a nice replacement to just looking at top of funnel metrics, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many leads you have if they aren't within your ICP and they're not ready to buy. And the problem that they're facing that your product provides them with isn't that much of a problem for them. So that was one tool I wanted to mention. But then the next tool that I would love to mention is the social listening. So it's Awario. The automation tool that I mentioned was Make, and my text for CRM. So if you have HubSpot and you go to a lot of in-person events, I use a tool called Hints. It actually gives you the capability of just using their app, and you can update your information for a contact, text your CRM, and then it will upload. And I know it integrates with HubSpot because I use it. So if you're interested in this slide, I know that I laid a lot on you, but I'm a big proponent of less talking, more showing. I hope that I achieved that well, but I have the prompts listed here. This whole entire slide deck is valuable. So if you'd like a version of this, please let me know. I'm happy to send it to you. And if you have any questions, please come find me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate that. And I'm just going to move our stage here. Okay. So you mentioned a lot there. Now, first off, I'm going to ask, which I'm thinking already, so I'm sure many of our viewers are as well. If they want to find some of those links, are you going to post them maybe on LinkedIn, or where's a good spot that they could find some of those resources you shared?
Yeah, absolutely. I have use cases for all of these tools. So I talk about them constantly on LinkedIn. That's probably the one channel that I'm married to and consistently post on. That would definitely be the place to come find out.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Okay. So visit Ashley Gross's next LinkedIn and find those tools posted there. Now, I do have a couple questions if you have a couple minutes. Are we okay for that?
Sure.
All right. Excellent. So here's some here. We might just rephrase them as we go, but are you using any GPT plugins that help do what you showed? So I know you mentioned some tools. Are any of those specifically GTP or GPT plugins?
No, when it actually comes time to create the content, I'm very bullish on Jasper. So I use their extension because it pops up everywhere no matter what. So I can make sure that my grammar is always on point and contextually it makes sense. That's the one AI extension other than the SEO extension that I use.
Okay. All right. Great. Let's see what else we have here. Here's one on segments. So how important is segmentation in ABM, and how can AI help with this?
It's incredibly important, but I think the bigger issue is, at the end of the day, we're not humans trying to sell technology and or, other products and services to, robots. We're human to human. And so I think that, yes, AI is great with segmentation, and it can definitely help you do deep dives into the intelligence. And, for example, planning a SWOT analysis against a competitor to prove that your product is a better fit for them for that specific segment. But I think the capabilities that I find the most useful when it comes to AI implementation and ABM strategies is the ability to see everything all at once. So things like Awario and listening to their social media and what they're actually telling us in real time beings is more of why I try to use AI and vouch for AI, because at the end of the day, you could do all the research in the world on that particular segment or company or industry. And then the person that you were reaching out to would leave. And that happens all the time. And then what do? Do you start over again because you didn't have, a certain amount of personas that you were including from the beginning? Or do you just try to target the person as an actual person? That's what I like to talk about.
Yeah. Okay, no, those are great points. Thank you. Okay, let me see here. So right here, it says there's a lot of free tools out there. When does it make sense to pay for an AI tool? Okay, and I think I'll just add to that. What indicators would you say is they're saying, hey, it's time to make that adjustment or pay for that, add that to the tech stack?
I think building the business case for AI really comes down to, do you know what problem you need to solve for? Are all of your stakeholders internally aligned on what that problem looks like and how they, as departmental leads, can provide solutions already to solve that problem? And then you insert AI. And so what that looks like is, if you're testing specific problems with specific AI tools that were created to solve those problems, download a free extension like Toggle, right? TOGGL. All it does is it's this big, obnoxious little timer that is very visible that you can keep open on your desktop, and you can start it and stop it and actually track how much time you're spending with these AI tools. I'm more so in favor of tracking overall job satisfaction and happiness. If I can keep the same workflow and mimic that in AI and still be the human in the loop, I would rather use that to get rid of the tasks that I have to do every single day that I hate doing, because then I'm going to have more joy in the tasks that I am doing. And that is going to be felt throughout the whole entire organization, because if I enjoy doing my job more, I'm going to give better care to the customers. Less customer churn means better brand. It's this great life cycle that continues to evolve.
Yeah, that's great. So if I can kind of reflect that back then. So what you want, I'm reflecting this back and saying, you want to make sure you have the process laid out first. You know what you're doing. Like, this is how we do our go-to-market strategy, or this is what our ABM motion looks like. And then you want to say, okay, what portions of that could we possibly implement or use AI to accelerate the processes that we're doing? And then you want to test it before you implement too much, and you can't remove it without causing some kind of risk or added cost. Do I kind of have that down?
Yeah, absolutely. And lean on the free versions. If the product's good, I don't think any of the AI tools in my tech stack don't have free trials. If they're confident about their tool and the value it brings, they're going to let you have a free trial, test it, and intentionally test it, right? Like, have the problem, have the diagnosis, have an original strategy or use case for solving the problem that you're trying in that LLM specifically. And then if you don't find success and you don't see ROI within the first 7 days of your free trial, that tool's probably going to time suck. It's probably just going to consume more of your time, and you're going to have to onboard yourself, and you haven't been shown the ROI yet. So why would you spend your non-existent time onboarding yourself to a tool after the free trial ends and you didn't find value in the free trial? So, Read AI is a great example. I have had Read AI between 2 to 3 years now, and I just started paying for their enterprise plan, which is $30 a month, 2 months ago, because they have a coaching feature that tells me like my words per minute. And, if I'm using inclusive language, I'm like really bad at saying, hey guys, and that's not inclusive. And so it points these things out to me if I interrupt people. And so my whole point in saying this is, if you love the tools, start with the free version and then use them so much that you literally need more room to grow. And then you start buying the capabilities and move up, but make it make sense. And don't ever sign up for something to put your credit card information in, because it's probably just going to charge you and you're not going to actually get ROI and value from it. And you're going to be frustrated. And I don't want you to be frustrated.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's great insight. And one thing that stood out to me that you're saying there too is it's ROI, and some of what's been brought up already in the summit and some of the recorded sessions is ROI can be seen not only in the revenue that's coming back to you, but maybe even in the time that's being saved. and the acceleration process. Like there's different ways to make that back in that tool, and just making sure that that's being gauged properly based on the motion that it's replacing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I would just say it's really noisy right now. I almost compare it to like, if you're sprinting, I feel like, you have that finish line, you have that use case that you want to use AI for and implement for, but everyone's like running towards the use case and trying to launch it, and they're looking around like, well, where's everyone else? Like, are they going to supersede me? Am I behind? Am I too early? And like, this is not, you can't compare. Like every company, every user, everybody's abilities are completely different. Keep your head down and stay focused, and you're going to go a lot further. This is why a lot of pilot projects tend to just be pilot projects that didn't ever get off the ground, is everyone was worried about what else was going on and not actually using the technology for what it was built for. Technology is just technology, and AI is just this shiny silver sticker right now that we're putting on everything. It doesn't mean it's great. It doesn't matter what it is or what it says. It's not an end all be all fix all. So just treat it as any technology. And with any technology, you need to onboard yourself and get used to all the capabilities and features in order to make the most of it and use it. So pick one LLM that you really like and a couple use cases, and hone in those specific skills for that LLM, and then branch out. But it's not really a marathon or a sprint. It's just kind of like everyone's on their own journey right now. And that would probably be like my best piece of advice.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ashley Gross. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate the insights that you shared with our audience today. For those that are viewing now live, or maybe once this session is released afterwards with on-demand access, be sure to connect with Ashley via LinkedIn and get more of her advice and insights there. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So before we welcome on our next live speaker, I just want to remind you, for those of you that are now joining us, that we are releasing pre-recorded sessions at the top of every hour. So at 10 o'clock, we released our last block 1, and then we'll have block 2 released here at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Also, you will find from the keynote presentation, if you joined us for that, if you weren't able to catch up on that, you can go backwards. You can rewind from now, or stay with us live. But you can see some of the information that was shared there, the research that was shared by Professor Oldroyd and Dave Elkington, co-founder of Silicon Slopes, CEO of Inside Sales. Now, the information that they obtained and the research they did was then put into an infographic that's being shared on the event website, which is AIRevenueSummit.com. So that's AIRevenueSummit.com, all one word. And there you'll be able to access that free resource. Also, you'll be able to take a look. If you go to our event site, you'll see the award winners. Again, as a recap, we had over 70 nominees, over 3,500 votes, with many of the award winners receiving more than 500 votes. And those are all community generated. So folks that are listening in, joining us live, those that may be able to have to catch it after working hours for the recorded sessions, thank you so much for your participation and supporting those that are adding that value to our industry. So with that said, we will get going a little bit early with Joan Jenkins, CMO of MindTickle. We'll be welcoming Joan. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thanks.
Yes, we're so happy to have you join us. Well, it looks beautiful where you're at. I think I'm enjoying my background here because it's a little bit rainy and too hot outside for me. So, but welcome, Joan. Let me just provide a brief introduction. So Joan is the Chief Marketing Officer at MindTickle with over 2 decades of experience in B2B marketing and sales. Joan has honed her expertise in leading high-performance teams at innovative companies, including Druva, Informatica, Oracle, and Cisco. Now the time is yours, Joan. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. So sharing my screen here. So great introductions. Again, I'm Joan Jenkins, CMO here at MindTickle. And as Pete mentioned, over 20 years experience managing marketing and sales as well. So being in the Valley for over 20 years, but happy to be at MindTickle now. If you don't know MindTickle, so it's really an all-in-one platform for revenue enablement. So really helping the GTM teams consistently grow their revenue. And today I'm presenting some top 5 AI strategies for sales results. I know a lot of us are involved with GTM teams, either working with GTM teams or you're on GTM teams. And there's a lot going on with sales tech right now, and a lot going on, new enhancements with AI, which I'll cover today. So just a quick view on what is the dilemma? What are we trying to solve here? A lot of stats. Some of you have probably seen some of these stats before. We're all trying to meet the number, trying to help our company increase revenue. 20% of our salespeople bring in 80% of the revenue. So really those top sales reps are the ones that are delivering that revenue. Only 42% of reps are meeting their quota. Conversion rates are down, especially with those companies who have the poor buyer engagement strategies. And it's not just limited to new business. We have customer churn happening that's very expensive. We're also all trying to pivot as we have new market shifts. I think every 3 months, or even more than that, we're seeing some different market shifts, and we're all needing to pivot. So, it's tough out there for GTM teams currently. We have some shared challenges around, like I said, the speed of change and grappling with that. As a sales team, sales processes have gotten more complicated and they extended. So it typically takes longer to close a deal. There's some coaching challenges with, I know coaching managers, managers don't have time to coach, that sort of thing. And then content. I hear this from every conference I go to. Somebody raises this, but there's so much content, but getting sales reps to get the right content for the deal is a struggle. So we all have the common goal of, across GTM teams and really those working with GTM teams to achieve our revenue goals. We definitely want to have that great customer experience, so they'll be coming back for more and purchasing more. And then competition, of course, is tight, so we want to outperform our competition. So just a final word on the challenge. It's also across GTM teams, there's a challenge of silos. So the danger is that you don't share data and there's not that collective, marketing's worried about content, but, are we getting those data and insights into, the sales team and back and forth? So there's a silo that is also a challenge. So really AI and can help. So with sales tech, we're really seeing this complete pivot into some very specific actions and strategies where AI can help bridge that gap and help us get to where we need to go. I'm going to focus on 5 areas to drive revenue and scale with AI. Some of these areas, as you'll see, I'll explain kind of current state and then near-term future state with AI, or in some cases where we are today with AI. I'm limiting it to these five areas because I think this is where activities are happening the most and we're getting the most out of AI from what I can see that's happening in the market. So first of all, training. So this is an area, where it's getting impacted quite a bit. So as a foundation, you need to make sure that your reps have the training that they need, have the skills that they need. And this is becoming more and more difficult across the board because every rep's different. There's different skill sets. There's different needs that you have out of the reps. And, we're all used to this bite-size content as well. So this is hugely important. It needs to be personalized based on the rep. So AI can definitely help in this space. I mentioned coaching earlier. This is an area that, and I'll definitely cover this, a bit more later, but this is an area that's going to be totally changed with AI around coaching. So more to come on that. as well as digital sales rooms. So DSRs. So this is, if you haven't started using DSRs, you're in a go-to-market team, definitely run and do this. I was at a recent Gartner conference, CSO conference, and our head analyst said, hey, here's the 5 things you need to be doing, and DSRs was one of them. I really think this is something to watch, and it's going to just continue to evolve. Right content, right persona. I mean, I think we all know this. We all grapple with this. It's hugely important, and AI is already having a big impact here. Lastly, this is definitely an area we're probably all taking advantage of. If you're not, definitely do that. This is around call recording and insights. We want to record our calls, get the insights. We don't want to have to go through every transcript and figure out the actions from that. So all of these areas are being revolutionized with AI and making improvements, in sales tech in each of these areas. So I'm going to cover each area, just a couple slides on each area, and give you an update on where we are now, how AI is changing the game. So first, enablement, training. The name of the game now is you really have to deliver that modern, engaging, high-impact enablement. There is no one-size-fits-all training. It just really doesn't get the job done. You have to be personalized to each individual. But we're all struggling with making sure that we deliver that adaptive approach. In addition to the personalized based on the individual, you really need to map that to what your company needs. So based on where you are, within your business, environment, based on your competitors, based on, you really need that personalized based on the individual, but then also what business outcomes are you trying to deliver? So training enablement across the board has to deliver this. And AI can help get you there. So it makes it much easier to quickly and easily deliver that training, especially as we look, budgets are tight, people hours are tight. So AI can help you deliver that quickly. It also helps you keep pace with the change. I mentioned earlier how markets continuously changing. So whether it's competitors changing, new products launching, tracking in a new industry, all of this, AI helps reduce that barrier to content creation and allows you to keep your reps up to date and really dealing with the challenges at every moment. So a few examples here, program creation. So AI, through Copilot can really just, you put in the content, it creates those program structures. So with some common use cases, but it's simple. There's some best practices, program structures, and you just create it on the fly. It can do things like assessment. So you're putting in the training content, PDFs, videos, anything you want, and it just immediately creates an assessment, and you can define that assessment, whether that's, hey, here's the level of difficulty that I want to place in the assessment, here's the number of questions. So you create those parameters and it can deliver. And then I'm going to touch on this piece, the practice pitches. This is huge. So Copilot can really create realistic scenarios. Reps can practice their pitch, and you'll see how AI is really changing that game. So again, this is a space that's changing quite a bit, but AI is only going to have more of an impact here going forward with tailored, on the fly, quick, enablement and training at scale. So role play. So this is, really delivering that real-time coaching that I mentioned earlier. So I'll give you just a baseline of role plays if you haven't tried it, you haven't heard about it, and then I'll talk about how AI is changing the game here. So role plays really are the new coaching. Online role play, it allows sellers to practice. So really practicing until it's perfect. So they feel confident with the messaging, they nail the delivery. And you can do a lot around this from a GTM standpoint, as far as setting benchmarks. You define the winning behaviors, you make sure that the reps are doing that. I mentioned the personalized based on your business earlier. So really informing and reinforcing training and enablement based on these role plays and tracking performance. Some common use cases I see are, cold calling, discovery, objection handling, competitive differentiation. So all of these you can set up, and as a rep or seller, you can practice. And again, it's that we all know if we do a presentation, if we practice that presentation, we're going to deliver it better than if we don't practice the presentation. It's really muscle memory, and it's feeling confident with every conversation. With role plays, your peers, your managers can provide feedback. And that way the reps aren't practicing with their customers. They're practicing on their own. They're delivering with their customers. AI here is phenomenal. I think this is really going to just take off. And if you watch this space, this is one of the things, as I attend conferences and I talk to people about this, everyone is blown away by this. And the way it's transforming things is, it's funny too. I had a conversation with the analyst recently, and he said, traditional coaching as we knew it is dead. And he was really talking about AI as the next wave of coaching. And so here's some examples. I'll describe what I mean. So with Copilot, you can give it a few prompts, and it can create real role play scenarios. So you can say, this company, I want this. I want AI to here's the persona, here's the company type, you can enter all these prompts and criteria. And then the rep can actually practice with an AI buyer. So that AI can have a real conversation with you and, kind of pretend that they are the actual buyer. And you can just have a real conversation with the AI buyer. So traditional role plays, as I mentioned before, you would record that presentation, send it to your manager, send it to a peer. You would get feedback. There might be a week delay. You get the feedback, or you would practice. But now with AI, it's instant. So you're practicing with the AI buyer, having realistic scenarios, and you're getting instant feedback. So, and you can get graded. So you practice 4 times, you get graded, and you don't have that fear of judgment if you send it off to your manager. Now, obviously, if you have AI grading you, giving you feedback, then once you get it to where you want, you can then send it off to your manager or to your peer. But you get that instant feedback, so it saves time. An example here that I've seen is, of course, AI will give you, will tell you you're using too many ums, your pace of speech, your sentiment. So not just, hey, you're using too many ums, but your sentiment, your filler words, giving constructive suggestions for improvement. And it removes that manager bottleneck as well. So I think this is going to be the norm here pretty soon. And I'm super excited about that. It's really changing the game. And by practicing that pitch, of course, you close deals faster. I'm so excited about that. We have a customer, I just want to mention Cisco, because there was a large pitch contest where they looked, basically it's the largest one in their history, where they had over 3,000 sellers, and they used AI to do the grading. And of course, we estimated that it saved 38 weeks of manager time reviewing. Imagine if all the managers had to review all of these pitches across over 3,000 sellers. That would be completely different. This was fast, it was easy, and you see some results here with a rise in average deal size. I mean, it really impacts your deal when you can practice these pitches here. The other area I'm super excited about and how AI is having an impact is really around digital sales rooms. Again, DSRs, you'll probably heard a bit about them. If you haven't, then you're going to continue to hear about them here soon. So Basically what these are, they're portals where buyers and sellers can engage with each other. So they can engage, they can collaborate. As a seller, you can make sure that the right content in there is in there and it's getting in front of your buyer. So your buyers can engage with the content. It's pretty cool. So it's all around consolidating communication, collaboration, content. And the buyers can come in as they want. So it's at their own pace. It's self-serve. It gives them a place to research, do their buying tasks. But also the cool side, on the flip side, is it gives insights to the sellers of what you're interested in. So, you might have 5 different people in the buying committee. They're clicking on different things. It gives you insight into those buyers. And so the seller can have meaningful conversations when they see that input. And one interesting side note as well, if you get an unknown user that comes in to the digital sales room, let's say, somebody's manager who you didn't have in the buying process, or maybe somebody in another group comes in and they're unknown, you can get that enriched and added to your CRM. So you're getting more informed, but then also the buyer's getting informed as well on their own at their own pace. And then they can reach out to you, of course, along the way. The technology is relatively new, but the key thing to look for if you're evaluating a digital sales room is make sure that the vendor delivers those insights. Make sure that you're getting that granular data, because it isn't just about that collaboration. It really is about those key insights and understanding what your buyers are looking at. And you can even track things like mutual action plans and other things in here. What we're seeing is DSRs are driving improvement in win rates and deal size and really some core key deal metrics. We just ran an analysis with one of our customers on really that customer performance. We were looking at with DSRs, without DSRs, what was the difference? And there was definitely a huge difference in not only winning more deals, but the type of deals that they were winning, and even expansion opportunities we're finding as well in some of these. So AI, so DSR is pretty cool. Pretty cool now with AI. It's adding that extra layer of automation that just makes it even smoother. So buyer co-pilot, so buyers can get answers to questions, so they can be in there talking to AI, get answers to their questions quickly, on their own, and supporting their buying path. So not only, again, does this benefit the buyers, but it benefits the sellers because they know what questions the buyer's asking and they can inform on that. Automated rooms, so this is pretty cool with eventually what the technology will be there to where the rooms will be automated. So basically you can create a room based on a persona on the fly. So it's really going to supercharge these DSRs and make it more personalized. And then of course content, delivering that relevant content to every visitor in the room. So if you have different people coming in from an account, you're going to get that personalized view of the content, of even where you're at in a deal stage. You're going to get that personalization. So super cool stuff. And this all supports really the self-service model that we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of our buyers, as you probably seen yourself. I mean, we all want to research. We all want to do things on our own. And then, of course, we want to engage with the seller as well, but there's a lot that we can find online we can do ourselves, and so AI is only going to support that. One quick note, this was a Sirion, a customer that we had worked with, their contract lifecycle management solution, and this was just really one deal they told us about where they saw over 100 unique visitors from the buying group going in, really researching over 1,000 hours they did on just self-service engagement without without engaging with the seller and engaging with the seller, as needed and when they needed. And they definitely found that this had a huge impact on securing that deal. All right, so content. AI, we all know AI's had a huge, significant impact on content, and really your team's ability to leverage the content to drive their sales motion. So no longer do they have to spend hours looking or creating content on their own anymore. These recommended assets are served up to them. So this has already has had an impact. Now with Copilot tools, what we're finding is that they can find the information and content faster, and really in real time. So, and then admins on the flip side are better able to maintain and deliver relevant, up-to-date libraries with AI. So this is an area that it's had an impact on, that's going to continue to have an impact on as well. But what are some of the areas that AI is poised to really deliver and revolutionize the way your team leverages content? So customization. So existing content customization tools, they're typically rules-based. They're really less automated than you would think. And they're usually somewhat costly to set up and maintain. So AI is going to make it easier for sellers to, have content really for any interaction, and always make it relevant and localized. So it's really serving up that hyper-personalized content. And content creation. So you're going to be able to create content from scratch with AI tools. So this is already out there, but it's going to continue to get better and really be embedded inside more of your existing content and tech. And so this will be taking learnings based on engagement and performance and delivering up fresh content. Insights are only going to get better as well with optimization. And one of the other areas, lastly, of what I would say on content is being a marketer. Content is always an area where you're always trying to prove the ROI. You're always trying to say, well, I know the content was used, but don't really know how much impact it had on the deal. But AI is poised to really help deliver that ROI. How is content being used? What persona used that content? What, how did that impact revenue? And so we're going to be able to get more granular on that with AI. And then finally, call insights. So call insights, what I mean by this is call recordings, getting the insights from those recordings. This area has gotten more and more sophisticated, I would say. And you're really able to gain those insights and pretty specific insights into each call. So what this does is we use this across our whole company at MindTickle too. Obviously, not just sales, just across the board. We use it in so many different ways, but basically sharing these calls with managers and teammates. If you're in sales, so you're sharing knowledge, you're making informed deal decisions based on these insights. Really analyzing calls in seconds. So it's pretty amazing, and delivering those insights without needing to ship through all these call transcripts. But it's also listening to, your top performers. I mentioned at the start that 20% of your top reps are generating the most revenue. So listening and understanding and getting insights from those winning behaviors is key. And this does that. Now, AI is already part of a lot of these call insights for sure. But what is AI doing, and will be doing around analyzing these calls? So it's really about simplifying, the rep follow-ups with these summaries and insights, and that technology is already here. Also enriching your CRM with these recordings and with summaries, and then capabilities as well of just making sure that you can have that chat and within the technology, and making sure Copilot can answer deal or rep related questions instantly, and you can have that interaction back and forth. So it's really all about boosting performance. You're measuring rep performance with these call insights. They're able to get that information, understanding your buyers, and enhancing the outcomes here. So I know I covered a lot with the 5 areas, but I just wanted to touch on each of them because they're all so important and help everyone better understand what we're seeing with AI and how AI is making a difference. I have just, here's one example with Data Axle around the call insights. And the way that they use this is really around rep onboarding and reducing new rep onboarding time, which is definitely a use case that we see a lot. And it helped them identify gaps and provide coaching to close these gaps. I just have a couple of slides on MindTickle. Just want to let everyone know who we are and what we do for a couple of minutes here. So who we are: a leader in revenue enablement, over 1 million users globally, G2 leader. We did just win the bronze award Stevie Award for DSR. So I put that in there. I was excited about that, especially as you can see, I'm excited about DSR. So one of the benefits, I'll just touch on this with one platform, is within each of these areas, you share the data. So there's definitely point solutions out there, but the benefit of the platform is, the DSR is sharing information, enablement sharing information, call insights is sharing data. So across the board, you're sharing that data and you're informing your training, or you're informing your DSRs or your coaching and so forth. We love our customers. A key piece of this is of how we help them is around personalizing that training, faster onboarding, increasing sales productivity, increasing win rates, making sure that training is where it needs to be, and then that one platform for enablement, content, coaching, conversational intelligence. So just a quick snippet about MindTickle if you didn't already know. And then lastly, just want to say, if you have any questions, any follow-up questions you think about, anything afterwards, please connect with me. I always like to hear it and engage. And thank you for inviting me. And with that, I know we have a couple of minutes.
Yeah, Joan, thank you so much for sharing a lot of insights here. So I was writing some things down, keeping track of it. But one thing that really stood out to me, if I can ask you a little bit about this, is the real-time coaching. That seems like that could really deliver of everything that I heard. I was like, wow, that impact, the time that you can save. I mean, you have multiple elements here. Sorry, let me just lower the slide here. So multiple elements of benefits that I'm seeing. So I want to get your thoughts. You're saving time. You're getting reps, employees better trained to be able to help accelerate their how fast they're able to produce and work. And then on top of that, you are optimizing through the automation, right? So there's a lot of it's not just one singular benefit. It looks like there's multiple. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think this is truly one of my favorite topics because I think this will revolutionize sales tech as we know it. Sales managers with time constraints, they don't have a lot of time for this coaching, especially, nowadays, and peers don't have time for coaching, but sales managers, sales team, they really need that coaching. And sometimes, when you're practicing, if I'm practicing a pitch, for example, if I was practicing this pitch from today and I needed to send it off to my manager, I wouldn't want to send the first couple of times I did it. I'd want to practice and practice and practice, but I still want feedback. I still want to improve my pitch. And so with AI, you're getting that instant feedback and you're able to say, oh, I didn't realize I said that many ums, or I didn't realize that maybe it didn't hit the mark with whatever prompt you put in there. You're trying to deliver X, you're doing it to this audience. You might want to consider some of your messaging. You might want to get some feedback on your messaging. And so the AI is doing that. And it's also allowing you to, have that conversation with AI. So, we have an example where we like to show some of our prospects where, one of our sellers is having a conversation with AI and they're asking some tough questions, and it's going back and forth. And you can tell the seller is, it feels like a conversation. So the sellers think, oh gosh, how do I answer that? So there's all those components, and then just the saving time. That you're sending off to the manager. Sometimes that's a bottleneck. You're not getting that instant feedback.
Yeah. And so I love the points that you brought up. And then how often is it that we keep the same sales script year over year, or the same motion of selling, right? It changes. And so now with AI, to your point, having that option to introduce the new elements and do that in such a way that there's a process already to expedite it and accelerate reps getting in there. That just means we can analyze and test more product marketing and sales enablement.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's funny, we tested getting the manager feedback, getting the AI feedback. And it's funny, AI is a little tougher on you than what we found.
There's no holding back. Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah. Absolutely love it. Well, thank you so much, Joan, for joining us, sharing your insights. Again, for those of you that may be joining us or missed the last bit of the slides, you can find Joan on LinkedIn, or you can also find her LinkedIn profile located through our AI Revenue Summit, and learn more from Joan and her insights. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, excellent. So again, thank you to those that have been joining us for the last 2 hours. We'll be releasing our second block of speakers here relatively soon. So again, if you're on the website, which we're broadcasting here in 3 different channels: LinkedIn, YouTube, and through the event website, which is airevenuesummit.com, airevenuesummit.com, one word. And you can find the blocks that have been released, pre-recorded sessions. You'll also, after the event today, be able to find and access this session along with the others on demand, again, at airevenuesummit.com. Now, one thing I do want to share with our audience is our keynote speakers. If you missed, that was with Professor Oldroyd and Dave Elkington. They talked a lot about an analysis and research that they're working on, and is ongoing research on the AI adoption in go-to-market and how it could apply. So with that, there has been a infographic that you can access, free to download, again, on the event site at airevenuesummit.com. But I did want to take a moment and just share that with you here. So here's kind of a sneak peek of that. It might be a little bit difficult to read from this perspective, but here there's the insights of what's going on with who participated thus far in these results, what the industries are saying, who's using AI the most, who's using it the least, what are they using, how are they using it, at what stage within AI, the complexity fields. And we've talked a lot about that with speakers thus far. What stage are people using that they found the most value? Which companies are still generating revenue with using AI, and which ones are losing, and what are they using that we need to avoid for maybe the time being, or maybe is being used, can be used in a different way. So again, this infographic is available at airevenuesummit.com, free to download. Let me go ahead, and there we go. Okay. With that said, we are going to be introducing our next speaker, who is Eric Zion. Let me bring Eric on. Welcome. Eric.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey.
Good day, everyone.
Hello. Yes, good morning. Eric, I would like to quickly introduce you before we get things started here. Now, Eric is CEO of Zion & Zion. recognized leader in the fields of artificial intelligence, account-based marketing, data-driven strategies, with extensive expertise in first-party and zero-party data strategies, customer data platforms, and cutting-edge marketing technologies. Eric has been at the forefront of helping organizations transform their operations to stay ahead in the rapidly evolving digital landscape. So with that introduction, Eric, again, we're pleased to have you join us. I will be sharing your slides here soon, and we'll let you take it from here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Am I still in a holding pattern, just waiting for you?
Oh, nope, you are good to go. Do you see your slides there?
Can you see my slides?
Yes, yep.
Question.
Yep, they're presented there.
Okay, great. Well,
all right, you're all good to go.
All right, well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where you are. Really excited to talk to you guys today. This is not going to be a presentation, though, that talks to you about all of the AI tools that are out there and all of the AI tools that are being pitched to you and all of the tactical things you can do with AI these days. This is going to be in line with the title of this presentation, which is Beyond the Horizon. So there are plenty of vendors, platform providers, SaaS providers out there that can do a great job of telling you exactly what tools they have to offer and how they can help you. What I'd like to do is leverage our pretty broad experience with both B2B and B2C clients in getting you to really think about where AI is going, what the particular promises of it, what certain things are to be concerned about. And no, I do not mean the generic things, such as privacy and will it replace people. We've got some very specific things to cover today. So that said, I'm going to step into the first chart here, which is titled The Near Zero Cost of Strategic and Creative Facilitation. So if you look at the diagram we have here on the right, everyone is talking about obviously how AI is such a tremendous shift, and it is, but I think it's worth putting in context exactly what kind of shift is it and how does it compare to other shifts. So if we go back in time earlier, mid-1900s, we have computing being a big shift, right? Which got us more processing, more number crunching, more speed. And then we basically got to the internet, which gave us an access shift. So more access to more information communication. Then we got to a wave of mobile smartphone devices that gave us, and also connected TV type devices, that gave us more access to distribution. So we went from more number crunching to more access to information to more distribution of content. And now basically what we have is a shift in the realm of production and analysis. Now, the reason I'm referring to near zero cost of strategic and creative facilitation is that the production cost, meaning generative AI, what it can do, is really only a near zero cost if what you're after is undifferentiated content. So we're going to talk more about that in a minute. What I would argue AI is very good at is facilitation, combining ideas, organizing them, reconciling conflicts between ideas, creating parallelism between ideas, and taking original thought and turning it into frameworks. So at this point, the pure generative creative abilities of AI are fairly limited, but it is exceptionally good at helping people facilitate more creativity and more structure to their content. So let's jump into this next chart. So what you're looking at here is a neural network. And I think you've all seen pictures of these before. But what I want you to really think about is what does this really allow AI to do? And more importantly, what doesn't it allow AI to do? So for those who haven't been exposed to what a neural network looks like, let's just focus on the left part, which is your input layer, and the right part, which is your output layer. Well, when we hear about LLMs being trained, basically they're taking a bunch of inputs and they're optimizing the node values and the links between the nodes in order to generate the correct output. But in so doing, what they're essentially doing is taking the same stuff as input that anyone can find should they do some searching, and creating the similar stuff as output that anyone can find doing searching. So the input and output that it's used to is what it works with. So that's why I talk about that AI really isn't going to give you brand new ideas unless you are jamming things into it that are different from what it typically sees, or in jamming them together in the input layer in ways that combine them in ways that are different than what it typically sees. Otherwise, you're going to get the similar outputs to everyone else. So I refer to this as, seeking differentiated creativity. Anyone can write a blog post, put together a sales proposal, etc., using AI, come up with an agenda for a meeting with a client on the B2B side. But if you want something different out of it that your competitors are not going to have, you're going to have to give it something different to work with than your competitors are providing. Otherwise, you and 17 other competitors going after the same business are going to ask it the same things. It's going to use the same inputs. It's going to give you all the same outputs. So it's really only zero marginal cost in terms of production when we think about undifferentiated output. If you want differentiated output, it is not zero marginal cost. Differentiated output, differentiated creativity takes a superior operator. It takes a person, a prompt engineer or other, who has different ideas that they're thinking about putting together in interesting ways, and using an LLM to help that person do that, so that the outputs they get from an LLM are not the same outputs that everybody else will get from an LLM. So something else to think about. So picture a B2B rep, a BDR, STR, account exec, CSR, etc. And they go in and they say, well, I don't know if AI is going to have that personal touch. It doesn't have the sensitivity I have. It doesn't pick up on all the signals that I pick up on, etc. So let's think about that for a second. How does that play with respect to AI being limited compared to a human being? So hence the title of this chart, More Human Than Human. So I'm going to refer to a study that was done in the UK where they were seeking to make chatbots close to as useful to a patient as a doctor would be to the patient, in terms of answering questions, providing guidance, etc. And the goal really was, how close can we get that AI to come to providing that experience to the end patient or customer in your case? Will that customer be able to tell the difference? So what turned out to be the case is that people actually preferred interacting with the chatbot to interacting with the doctors, which really begs the question, is being human all that great when it comes to B2B selling, B2B revenue growth? Does being more human on the AI side actually a better thing from the customer's perspective? And being a human being obviously comes with mistakes. It comes with frailty. Some people have exceptional emotional intelligence or EQ. Other people have exceptional quantitative intelligence, IQ. But rarely do people excel at both. But different customers are oriented differently. So I'll give you an example. There's a framework out there. We've used this extensively with our management team called E-Colors. It divides people up along 4 dimensions. You've got doers, thinkers, engagers, and empathizers. And typically, a person, a human being, excels on one of those dimensions and then has a secondary dimension as a backup. And occasionally it might have a third, but it's not that common. So meaning some people are real doers, other people need to think about something deeply, other people get going with all the energy and engagement of something, and other people get their thrill from empathizing with others, hearing their stories, getting aligned with that person. So if you're in B2B revenue growth, whether you're on the sales, CSR, marketing side, et cetera, you are probably going to have one of these colors, and each one of these is labeled with a different color, hence the term E-Colors. You're going to be a doer, a thinker, an engager, an empathizer primarily. Whether or not that is aligned with your end customer, well, that depends upon who the end customer is, who the particular personality you're talking to is. Whereas AI does not have this kind of problem. It can be trained to pick up on the signals that somebody puts out, a customer puts out. The way the customer communicates, is that customer a customer that's a doer that just wants to get things done now? Are they a thinker that wants to process a lot of information before moving forward, et cetera? AI doesn't have the limitations that people have. Now, does that mean AI is going to replace people? Maybe at some point, certainly not tomorrow. But in reality, you having AI alongside a BDR or an SDR is going to help that person engage that customer better because it can take into account the subtleties and the personality differences that a person may have trouble adapting to style-wise. All right. Next thing I'd like to cover, customers over technology. So I'm going to say, and people hear this all the time, but they still tend to violate this axiom, do not start with technology. Start with the customer journey. And I don't mean understanding awareness, consideration, purchase, and loyalty, but understanding what being better than your competitor actually would mean to a customer from their persona perspective, their journey perspective. You still want AI to do what people are not good at, but people do wear out. People have biases, people make poor decisions under pressure, and people process information differently depending upon who the person is, and they make assumptions about other people. So focusing on customers instead of technology is key. Another thing that's really important is when thinking of leveraging AI in the B2B world, really in B2C as well, is to not stop at revenue. Today, most of the AI tech that is being pushed at the beginning of that funnel. Get that deal, close that deal, predict who's most likely to sign that deal, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is there is a lot of information throughout the entire customer lifecycle that should be incorporated into AI models and decision-making, not just how to get a deal across the line. Next topic I want to cover quickly, and by the way, I put my email at the bottom of these charts because I know I'm going through this quickly. If you have any questions, want to discuss these or any other topics further, feel free to email, should be pretty responsive to that. So back to the future, something that started really in 1986. Engineers working at Motorola pioneered the use of Six Sigma. And for those of you that don't know what that is, basically it's using statistical methods to identify causes of variation and then reduce variation. The reason I bring this up is that a lot of people have spent time building AI models, building machine learning models, but they are not putting time into operationalizing those models so that they can continually revalidate the outcomes that those models produce, that they can monitor error rates, that they can figure out whether the models are drifting over time in terms of their predictive ability. So that's something, and I say we're really going back decades to remembering the idea of using statistical methods, although different ones today, to identify variation in what models predict from reality, and then continuously retrain AI models so that they stay on track. Things could vary for reasons such as seasonality, competitive activity, market factors, etc. But building a predictive model that is not in a constant retraining mode when it starts to drift in accuracy is a recipe for diluting yourself short term by short term going, hey, we have it. We have a very predictive model, but then finding out that over the mid and long term, you're just way off and operating under old assumptions. Okay. Another point, still developing your own thought leadership. So I can't count the number of marketing teams these days that will come up with a question. They will have AI spit out some content. It'll sound intelligent. It'll even be true. They'll tweak it a little bit. They'll post it and they'll say, hey, content strategy done. I have material going out into the dark funnel and I've done my job. Well, we all know, most of us know that's really not true. The opportunity, though, with AI is to accelerate your attention to detail in that creative and your personalization of that creative, not just to get the creative output faster. So, for example, they've seen this happen a lot. Let's say a B2B buying committee consists of the CFO, and the B2B marketing team will say, well, what do CFOs care about? They care about return on equity. They're going to incorporate weighted average cost of capital. They're going to look at gross margins. They're going to look at earnings. They're going to look at exit multiples. Well, if I respin my content around those things, all of a sudden I've now spoken to the CFO. Well, kind of true, but if you take it a level deeper, are you dealing, for example, with a CFO that we would be what we would call an optimizer, who's all about tweaking the bottom line and maximizing financial value and is staring at that spreadsheet quarter to quarter to quarter? Or are you dealing with what we would call a visionary CFO, who is incorporating a long-term view of the business and is trying to make longer-term investments and can think bigger picture? If you think of your audience and start segmenting it more finely, not just around job title, but persona of the particular person in the job and how those different CFOs may vary, how different CEOs may vary, how different IT people may vary. Now you start to use AI to accelerate your development and empathy with different personality types and not just different job functions. And then as AI tech begins to absorb what kind of person am I hearing on this call or sensing in this email? Have I looked at their LinkedIn background? Do I see what they're posting? What companies have they come from? Were those visionary companies? Were those sluggish companies, etc.? All of that plethora of data allows AI in a way that's very difficult for a person to assimilate all that information to decide what kind of person am I dealing with here, personality, not just seniority level and job function, which is currently a big limitation today in ABM. All right, we have 9 minutes left. I'm going to skip past this one. I think the slides will be made available so you can look back at it later. I want to talk about this one. This is a really big deal. So the end of Hail Marys and desperation, as I put it. So if we think about what AI is used for today in a B2B environment, There is absolutely a lot of predictive modeling. There is a lot, if you look at, demand base, or let's use 6sense, the whole 6QAing of a lead that tells you, when it should be passed over for handling. And when you think about that sort of thing, that does give you some information about the status of a lead. But now picture the actual life of AEs, BDRs, and SDRs. They get to the end of a quarter or the end of a month, pressure comes down to make quota, and they start going after everything under the sun. Some of it is aligned with the needs of the business because the business would agree, yep, you should go do everything again to get some revenue right now. We need it. But at that point, they're often under so much pressure that there's more irrationality in their decision making. Under pressure, people do not make the most rational decisions. What AI holds the promise for is evolving these predictive models further to not just say, okay, this is a customer who has reached a point where we should start interacting with them personally or hand it over to sales, but even further than that. I'm now at the end of a month or a quarter. I desperately need to get some more revenue. I am willing to put in an extra 24 hours of work over and above and beyond my normal workday because I've got to make quota. Okay, what are the leads that stand a chance of me accelerating the sales cycle if I take certain actions, and what should those particular actions be? That is a level where AI has not been brought to bear, but it is easy enough to do that today. Again, not just the normal predictive model, but the subtlety of increasing the likelihood of closure under certain circumstances. All right, next topic I'd like to cover real quick is this idea of moving from customer lifetime value to customer lifetime velocity. Some of you may have heard of the term longevity velocity. It refers to the idea that basically for every year a human being lives now, they're actually not a year closer to death as death would have been defined a year prior. They're less than a year closer to it because their longevity keeps getting extended because of advancements in healthcare. I believe the same thing is going to start to happen with customer lifetime. We're going to experience not just static customer lifetime value, but customer lifetime velocity, where the longer somebody is a customer, the better AI has gotten because more time has passed, the more info you have, and you are no longer 1 year into a customer's lifetime, 1 year closer to that customer churning, but you're less than a year because you've got better information and AI has gotten better. So I would encourage people to think about, how do I extend the lifetime of the customer, not just the value over that lifetime, but the velocity of that lifetime? How do I make that lifetime longer? Okay, getting closer to the end here. It's important for people to not just understand this idea of flaring versus focusing, but how AI can help with this. So anyone with a design thinking background could easily be familiar with this term. So flaring is the idea of idea generation. How many ideas can we come up with? What's possible? What if? The art of the possible, etc. And focusing is the idea of, okay, now we have to narrow it down. Stop thinking about all the possibilities and start thinking about what we're going to focus on, how we're going to prioritize. So generally, we see people go through a process of, or organizations, I should say, flaring and focusing. Idea generation followed by focus, followed by more idea generation, followed by focus. Usually it takes teams of people to do this because individuals have trouble context switching from flaring to focusing, back to flaring, back to focusing. What I would encourage you to think about is AI as a work buddy that can help you enforce the discipline on yourself that you might know you want or need, but you don't have a clone of yourself sitting next to you taking, counterbalancing you. So here's a really good example. One of the things I love to do is when our agency has developed a framework or a piece of thought leadership, white paper, whatever it might be, is to take that info back into GPT and to tell GPT, here's what we've done. And by the way, I hate it. I think it's undifferentiated. I think the competitor might say the same thing. And then ask for help. Impose restrictions on it that say, I know what I did, but now I'm going to ask you to pretend I hate what I did, and now help me from there. Okay, so last chart, and we'll close up here, is be very careful about the term having an AI strategy. Many people put the word strategy after something, an AI strategy, a marketing strategy, a technology strategy, and they enter the dangerous territory of thinking because they've used the word strategy that it is therefore strategic. Strategy is about making choices, and everything else that follows, be it AI or any other form of tech, is a tactical choice on whether and how to use it. Okay, so we have a couple minutes for questions. Happy to take those. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time today.
There we go. A little lag on my end. Apologies. Thank you so much for joining us today, Eric. We really appreciate it and hearing your words of wisdom. We do have 2 minutes here, so I will get one question off if I may. Let's see here. It says we don't want to fall behind in using AI, but we don't know exactly where to start. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my last chart, don't think of the AI first. Companies, people have made this mistake for decades. There's something out there called a CRM. Let's get it, and then we'll be able to manage our clients. There's something out there called analytics, Google Analytics. Let's get it, and we'll understand our clients. There's something called a customer data platform. Let's get it, and we'll be able to get a 360 view and manage the 360 of the customer. No, no, and double no. Start with where your organization is going and your business objectives. And as those trickle down, identify the pain points, and then ask yourself which of those pain points could benefit from increased predictive modeling, increased content generation, increased context switching, increased analysis of data in order to understand complexity. Start top down. And I know half the people listening will forget that when we get off the call and go, where do I start with AI? Go back and listen to a recording of the webinar again.
Excellent. Excellent. Eric, thank you again so much. Again, CEO of Zion. You can find him on LinkedIn. And we appreciate it. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you to all of those that have participated thus far in the AI Revenue Summit. As a reminder, you can find the presentations that have already occurred live at airevenuesummit.com, as well as the pre-recorded presentations that are included in Block 1 and 2, which have both been released. Next up, we'll be hearing from Brian McCarson. Brian, I'm going to go ahead and bring you on. How are you?
Hello there. I'm wonderful. It's great to be here.
Good to hear. And we're super happy to have you with us. Let me briefly introduce Brian here. He is currently the EVP, CTO, and CISO at PackSize International, an award-winning supply chain and sustainable packaging industry leader in North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. So thank you again for joining us, Brian. I'll turn the time over to you and get your slides pulled up here.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today and share with you some of my thoughts on ways that you can harness artificial intelligence to drive revenue growth for your enterprise. And as stated, I'm the CTO, CISO, and EVP at PackSize, but I'm also an AI technology inventor. And so I've Started my career in the earliest stages of AI 20 plus years ago, which were nothing more than more complex if-then else statements, all the way through object detection, object recognition, natural language processing, generative AI capabilities across a variety of different use cases, including vision and others. And so I'm going to share with you some of the painful lessons I learned over time around how you can use AI and ways that you can avoid very distractions. There's no question at this point, the opportunity that AI presents businesses, the amount of global AI spending that we're seeing, the level of interest that is existing in the markets, the number of times this comes up in board meetings at every company across the planet. AI is clearly steep on the hype cycle. But there's also a reality that AI is delivering significant incremental value to companies today. And there's also a lot of companies that are going to get distracted, and AI is going to slow them down. And you can take advantage of this massive ramp up in global spending for AI across enterprises and use this to your advantage if you follow a couple of basic steps. But it's important to note, there are some barriers. There are barriers you have to overcome in order to be able to successfully deploy AI. And I love the comments of Zion in the previous presentation. Could not agree with many of the things that he stated more. And I'll talk about some of those here, but I have maybe perhaps a different view. To me, the number one challenge I've seen over many years in the AI field is scale, and the number two problem is scale, and the number three problem is scale. It's scale, scale, scale. And the question you have to ask yourself is, are your AI experts, are your data scientists, your model developers, are they creating point solutions? Or are they tasked with creating scalable models on scalable platforms? I have seen countless millions of dollars spent by very large and successful organizations that was a complete waste because they invested so much time on trying to train a model to do something extremely focused and extremely specific. And anything in the environment that changes, whether it's someone trying to do defect detection on a manufacturing line, if they overtrain on one specific use case and suddenly the lighting changes in the factory you're in, everything in the model can break. If the product changes, everything in the model can break. You have to ask your team, are you training a model to do a specific thing? Are you trying to detect a specific object, as an example? Or are you training the model to detect and classify an array of objects and record the context of the observations to assist in further model refinement over time? What is the destination your AI teams are trying to achieve? And if you're not cautious, you can get in this hype cycle and, hey, we just got to show we're using AI to do something cool in our business and focus too much on individual point solutions and not think about the destination you're trying to achieve to. You're trying to grow revenue. You're trying to improve productivity. You're trying to eliminate constraints in your business and use AI as a tool to assist with that. Additionally, a barrier to scale is AI today is highly workforce dependent. We think of AI as being a system or process that can be used to increase the efficiency of a workforce. But that's true once you have a finished product that you're deploying. But getting there through a traditional AI workflow, there is lots of this human in the middle constraint. You still need people to define problems. You still need people to focus on data capture, data cleansing. They have to do model development, model training. They have to evaluate those models, refine them, put them in a production environment to deploy them, and then manage that and go through a full, ML ops cycle in order to be able to rinse and repeat and continue to optimize over time. It's not a trivial amount of work, and it's very difficult to retool an existing workforce who's not used to AI successfully. And this problem, I believe, is one of the biggest workforce constraint problems that we will have over the next decade. But don't take my word for it. There's others that feel this way as well. If you look at the workforce constraints, today it's expected that there's less than 1 million available AI experts in the workforce. And last year at the close of the year, there was over almost 2.5 million open positions. So the ratio of available workforce to open positions was extremely imbalanced. And if you look at how that's expected to grow just by the end of next year, you're talking about nearly 100x constraint. Now, the available workforce will grow, so maybe that drops down to a 10x constraint. But the reality is there's a lot of human in the middle bottlenecks in AI, and there's a shortage of resources for a highly competitive market and a highly competitive compensation environment for your AI developers. It's going to be difficult to attract and retain the talent you need to successfully develop and deploy AI solutions. So what are my recommendations? Well, a few things I think are worth noting. First, I think you can use the theory of constraints. I apologize for the formatting issue there. I think you can use the theory of constraints and solid product leadership to really allow AI to accelerate your team versus having AI be a distraction for your team. Now, what do I mean by that? You have an existing business and you're trying to understand how you can grow your revenue base. From the top level of the organization, is it clear what's limiting your revenue growth today? Do you have supply chain constraints? Do you have skilled workforce constraints? Do you have product development constraints? What are the things that are holding you back? Too many defects in your product? What are the challenges that you need to overcome in your business? And instead of just looking for AI tools that you can go deploy that are available in the market, you should be focusing your team on understanding what are our biggest revenue growth challenges. And if it's inventory and supply chain management that is holding your company back, that's where you do your first AI projects. That's where you go and find partners, hire the right talent, and go work on deploying intelligence in that area to eliminate those constraints. It's just like a theory of constraints application versus just looking for, hey, how do we, ChatGPT exists, how do we use this to make our business run better? Instead of finding a tool and looking for an application, think about your constraints and how you can go look for the right tools to fix your specific problems. Your opportunity for success is so much greater. The opportunity for a positive return on investment is so much greater when you're applying it to your existing constraints. Additionally, this approach that so many companies are taking to deploy AI in their enterprises reminds me a lot of challenges that we saw 20 years ago in the workforce when people were trying to find ways to apply lean principles to their company. If you're just going to say you're applying lean principles, then you might see some benefit. It might sound good. But if you're really trying to understand how lean principles can be used to make your business run better, then you could be onto something great. And my strongest advocacy is find the existing limiters and search for partners or develop your solutions around scalable platforms to fix some of your current revenue growth limiters. Then you can also, in parallel, it doesn't have to be in sequential order, focus on applying AI to enhance the value proposition of existing products or services. If you have a customer base that you're servicing today and you want to grow that revenue base, you can look for opportunities to deliver a better customer experience, to reduce the number of defects that a customer has to deal with, to predictively understand what sort of challenges your customers might be facing. You can look for ways you can take data, turn it into information, and create enterprise value on existing products and services. Think of it as an enhancement to an existing product line. And if you can get AI tools applied to enhance your existing product line, the opportunity of success is so much higher than just starting off with, let's go create our own new AI tool to go do X in the marketplace. Starting from scratch can be done, and there are companies who have been extremely successful at it. There's a lot more companies that have failed in that sense. The companies I've consistently been able to see apply AI, not effortlessly, but with the least amount of friction, have been the companies that have focused on using AI to enhance their value proposition. And this is just core product leadership principles. Next, focus on context. What surprises me is how little the AI ecosystem is talking about the power of context in AI. In order for you to achieve any sort of agentic AI systems capability, in order for you to have healthy and scalable generative AI systems capability, you have to have some level of context awareness in your system. What do I mean by that? Well, context is when you have a single data point. I found a shopper on my camera in my retail store, and I know that they're there. Okay, interesting data point. If I don't understand the context of that shopper, there's not much value I can create from that. But if I can understand demographics, if I can understand the context of what are they doing, what are they interacting with in that retail store? Are we sensing buying behaviors? Have we detected that person before? Do we recognize that individual? Do we understand their purchasing history? Do we understand their purchasing patterns? Do we understand that they normally shop online, or do they shop in store primarily? Are there external events that they shop online when the weather's bad and they shop in store when the weather's good? Are there things like that in the data that you can add almost as metadata to your database to be able to provide context and utilize that to make better real-time decisions? You can make better decisions on inventory, on pricing, on pushing promotions, having feedback on how your products are meeting the needs of the market. When you have context, you have an opportunity to significantly improve the generative AI capabilities of your systems. And ultimately, it gets you a step closer towards having more proficient agentic AI systems, or eventually humankind will find ways to even approach artificial general intelligence. But you can't approach artificial general intelligence without context awareness. And this is what makes humans so smart. We can detect the context. We can sense the tone in the voice and the environment. We can look to see where were they looking when they said that versus when they said something else. We can adapt that to different people, different environments. We can customize our approach. We can find intelligible ways to explain what we know and what we don't know. Humans are fantastic at context. And if you look at some of the phenomenal work OpenAI has done, I can't speak highly enough of how brilliant I think that team is. One of their key advantages, in my view, is their willingness to use the context of social media scored databases and understanding, was there humor exposed in that particular text thread? And was that upvoted or downvoted? And treating upvotes and downvotes as reinforcement learning, but understanding the context. Oh, in this subreddit, when I comb through Reddit's database, I find these items are humorous and these items are offensive. In a completely different subreddit, I may see different patterns. You can start to get senses of how humans respond and what they upvote or downvote if you better understand the context of the information that's presented. Just having a highly upvoted phrase or sentence is not going to do you much good unless you know the context with which it was typed and the context with which it was upvoted, in what forum. All that contextual information leads to much more robust training capabilities. And so I think OpenAI as an organization definitely gets the value of context. And when I've seen other companies do well at deploying their solutions, or just even beyond LLM type solutions, when they're focusing on the context, they end up producing better, repeatable, more reliable outcomes. So where are there additional opportunities? Well, context awareness in your generative AI system can actually solve a lot of your future human in the middle constraints that you're going to have. If you think about where your organizations are going to need to go, and you look at the traditional AI workflow that we just described in the previous slide, if you can have a context-aware AI database, you can start to create the capabilities of having hypothesis generation and testing systems embedded in your AI solutions. And with those hypothesis generating and testing systems, combined with contextual awareness, you can start to allow your systems to be more adaptable. And making them more adaptable because you're building context into your solution will make that platform much more scalable and avoid a huge amount of human in the middle constraints that your team may be experiencing over time. I like to think about one of my favorite use cases for the use of artificial intelligence, which is improving product quality in any sort of organization, whether the product is software, whether the product is an application, whether the product is a widget that's manufactured. Looking for the type of analytic capabilities that can identify anomalies that the human eye wouldn't be able to detect is essential in improving the number of defects that are caught by your organization before they work their way out to customers, whether that defect is an error in code, whether that defect is a non-functioning or damaged product. You want to be able to detect that as early as possible in your flow and make sure it doesn't get to a customer. And using AI tools to try to help detect those kind of issues can be one of the quickest ways that you can increase the operational efficiency of your organization and ultimately improve the output of your organization, because you're spending less time addressing the fires of a product that shipped out and had issues versus catching it first and delivering something high quality to your customers. But all too often, I see organizations go on the hunt for a specific known defect. If it's a widget, if it's an application, looking for a specific known security vulnerability, looking for a known defect that can occur on that widget. If you're training a vision system on a manufacturing line just to try to spot one known defect, you're going to find that to be extremely challenging if you change your product design, if you move manufacturing to a new location, if you ramp up your manufacturing to multiple lines. That whole model may need to be redeveloped again from scratch, or constantly modified to make sure that it's accurate. If you are designing your system to look for anomalies, look for understanding what healthy is, and simply trying to detect what doesn't look normal, then you can also start to build in a context-aware AI database, a CAD system, that can understand when I saw something odd, what was the context of that? Where was it? What time of day? What was the environment? What came before it? What came after it? You can start to build in intelligence that will allow your system to do what humans can do, which is classification. But you can't classify easily without context. You need to be able to have that context awareness built in directly to your solutions. And by doing so, you then can unlock additional generative capabilities. And it's not just applying generative AI for the purposes of, I want to add 2 user inputs of, a unicorn driving a Porsche 911, and then do some scene fusion generatively and create an image. There still are those generative capabilities that can exist without some level of context. But the more contextually aware that generative AI system is, the more it'll be able to understand how humans work, what we see, and what's highly capable in terms of an output from that. I think many of you have probably seen you do an image generation tool, say, show me a person camping, and the generative engine puts the campfire inside the tent. Okay, well, it found all the right ingredients, it knew that context, but didn't necessarily understand the context of fires inside tents are generally not a good idea when you're camping. And so providing more layers of context can enable you to take another step in generative AI, which can allow you to actually start to generate even new models and start to test those new models in new ways. So applying generative AI capabilities directly into your model development. And that's another way that you can help improve the scale capabilities of your organization. And so with that, I will wrap up my talk for the day and say thank you to all of you for letting me speak today. I hope you found this insightful. And if there's any questions, I would love to be able to answer those at this time.
Excellent. Brian, thank you so much. Thank you for all the preparation that was put into that. Really insightful on knowing the context, right? Understanding that what goes on around that. One thing that stood out to me that you shared that I wanted to ask and ask you to expound on is let me see here. I made a note now. Value prop. Yeah. So value proposition, when you said that, I was thinking of everything else that you've mentioned during this presentation. I think that understanding that value proposition, making sure that's what you want to present to your buyers before you move forward is so important, because it creates that alignment with everyone else that's involved in that process.
That's right.
So, just like to hear some more of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, one of the things I find really interesting is there was a recent publication that came out from an analytics firm, and I won't quote them here because I don't have the citation perfect, but their view was, if they look across the whole range of products, how do consumers respond to AI as an ingredient in what they're buying? And they typically dislike it. Consumers, if they feel like if you put enhanced by AI, if you add that into a product, they tend to like it less. It feels artificial. It becomes almost like an artificial ingredient, where if you put like artisanal in front of it, or hand carved, or handmade, that can often be increased in the value perception of consumers. So it's important to think about, what is the customer wanting to pay for? And if you follow really robust product leadership principles in your product design, and you understand your value proposition, you can think about, how do I apply AI to improve my customer experience? Most people would love to have a chatbot that can instantly answer the question that works effectively. First time I typed a question, I instantly got an answer. I didn't have to sit on hold for 15 minutes and wait for someone to help me troubleshoot. They helped me fix my problem immediately. That application is delivering a better customer experience using an AI-based chatbot to go search a broad amount of data and give a customer a quicker answer to their problem. You're using AI not for AI's sake, but to deliver a better value proposition to your customer. And that's what I recommend businesses do. When you're thinking about the use of AI, either be using it to solve your own revenue constraints internally, or use it to better define or to better enhance a customer value proposition from the customer's perspective, not from your perspective. And assume the customer may never even know that you used AI in that end product, because they may not want to pay more for it if you do it. But if they just get a better experience, they're often delighted to have that. Another good example in the automotive industry is there are a number of people who get very nervous at the thought about self-driving capabilities. It really worries them. But they're delighted to purchase a car that has accident avoidance brake assist features or dynamic cruise control. I mean, these are AI capabilities that exist, but it's not going so far as getting people worried about the implications of self-driving. It's, hey, we've got features that are going to help assist you when you're driving to have a better, safer experience. That sounds great. But if you just pitch it as artificial intelligence for artificial intelligence sake, that can be more of a challenge.
Excellent. Yeah, just emphasizes the importance of that market testing before going so far deep down the funnel. Well, again, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. Brian, again, for those of you joining us, EVP and CTO of Packsize International. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you for those who continue to join us during this 4-hour live presentation of the AI Revenue Summit. As a reminder for those of you that may just be joining us, everything is being recorded for on-demand access. We do have some pre-recorded presentations that are available in blocks 1 and 2 that can be found at the AIRevenueSummit.com. That's AIRevenueSummit.com, and you can find the rest of those presentations. No cost to access those. You'll also find the infographic that discusses more of the studies that was discussed during the keynote session from Professor Oldroyd, professor at BYU, and David Elkington, CEO of Inside Sales and co-founder of Silicon Slopes. So please take advantage of those resources as you're available to. Next up, we have our speaker here from Demandbase. Let me welcome Todd Alsop.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be joining.
Welcome, Todd. Thank you for joining us. Let me give a brief intro here to Todd. He is the VP of Product Marketing at Demandbase with 19 years of marketing experience, including 15 years in B2B SaaS product marketing. He has built 3 B2B SaaS product marketing practices from the ground up. Todd, thanks so much for joining us, and I'll turn the time over to you.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Pete. And you actually just beat me to what's going to be my first intro slide, so even better. So we'll go ahead and get through that one. Again, really happy to be here today. The only other piece that I would add on in terms of like intro and background is a lot of what you're going to hear today I learned half by like reading and listening and talking to people, and half of it was by doing things that I got right and wrong along the way. So hopefully everyone will be able to learn from me and in ways where I've done some good things and also stumped my toes. So looking forward to sharing with you over the next 20 or so minutes. So wanting to just make sure and anchor on where our goals are today. Want to provide content around AI messaging, both internal and external. So so much of the summit I know has been aimed around like, how are you using AI and tooling? This is a deliberate kind of departure from that here at the end. I believe in our Olympic season, I'm bringing up the anchor. So excited to kind of have a shift in the content to be, again, more focused towards that messaging and making sure that that messaging is looking right for multiple audiences in ways that ultimately get people nodding their heads and pulling out their wallets for you. So that's number one. The second goal is I want to leave you just a little more comfortable, conversant, and even opinionated on AI and how to help position and message around that. This does content will lean more B2B and software. I will caveat, I am a product marketing and messaging expert. I am not an AI expert, so technical depth we'll leave it for others. Also want to just acknowledge that because we are still, especially within Gen AI, are more in still the kind of the wild west of AI, things will change. And so what's good here today may not necessarily be good here tomorrow. So things move fast, as we know. We will have some time for Q&A at the end, and we'll make sure that the deck is available as well. So I know we've got the comments. I'm going to flip over to that so I can see people's responses come in. I wanted to just take a moment, like maybe hopefully any good product marketer is kind of tune a little bit of the message to the audience as well. So curious to just understand from you in terms of if you'll put some letters in for those of you still with us, if you're along the lines of E, F, G, or H in terms of your comfort level and understanding when talking about AI. If you're very comfortable, somewhat uncomfortable, you're somewhat comfortable, or very comfortable. So we'll caveat that this content is more geared towards kind of the first three. If you can go toe to toe with some technical folks, then you should probably be leading the charge here. So the second question I want to just again take a pulse for folks is understanding your current company's products, kind of current state of affairs with AI, whether you're leveraging AI, you're starting to, you're not leveraging it yet, but you're kind of building, you're already leveraging that today, or maybe there's some folks here who are actually in an AI technology company. So seeing some of those answers start to roll in as well. So that's great. We'll go and move into some of the content. So what we're going to do, there's a touch of a primer, and then we'll take a look at some do's and don'ts at a glance, and then kind of deeper dive on each in terms of AI messaging. So let's dive in there. Brief primer here. So as everyone well knows by now, AI is everywhere. It is the buzziest of buzzies, and the noise to signal ratio is just staggeringly high. It's like political news right now, where you can find an article or a POV to essentially support whatever you want to think. And you have also many stakeholders with a wide variety of views on AI. I know Brian was just talking earlier about some people love this and into it and need to see it everywhere, and others are really scared of it. So some of what he mentioned there, we'll touch on a little bit here as well. So there's actually signal too starting to emerge that the investor community is starting to see an AI bubble, and that's interesting. That's happened over maybe the last month or so. I am not paid to prognosticate on these sorts of things, but I will say that knowing that customers typically lag Wall Street here and the investor community, we should safely assume that the AI hype bubble is not going to burst for customers anytime soon. So understanding that that's the case, then let's take a look at our kind of do's and don'ts at a glance. I am pulling from a presentation I've given before, by the way, that's about 45 minutes in length. And so I've consolidated some of here, and so you'll see some evidence of that. But really want to drive home four total points: 2 do's and 2 don'ts. So in terms of do number 1 is we want to make sure that we are kind of customer conversational with our AI. 2, our don't number 1 is let's not make broad AI claims to our customers. Our don't number 2 is let's not say the same thing to everyone. And then our do number 2 is we want to demystify and reduce that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or FUD. Brian mentioned some of that as well, in terms of like there are some in the market, especially higher regulated industries, where that FUD is high, and we need to respond well to that. So let's dig into those 4. I encourage you to hear my perspective, decide if or how much you agree with that. Like lots of cutting edge topics, hard and fast rules are tougher to come by. So either way, you'll have a stronger perspective coming out of this. All right, so as we've said, as AI isn't going anywhere, best thing for your job now and career overall is to acquire some functional breadth and depth here. And so we're going to start by panning way out before we kind of peel some onion back in. So peeling the onion from the very top, highest altitude, there's essentially 3 levels of successive AI. We are in the ANI, or artificial narrow intelligence today. Arguably, depending on which prognosticators you're listening to, AGI, or artificial general intelligence, could have somewhere of a 2040 to 2050 time horizon. And then artificial superintelligence after that, and maybe never. So important, I want to just peel the onion way back enough to just say that when we say AI, what do we actually mean from those who spend every single day here? We are living in the world of the left. We are living in the world of artificial narrow intelligence. So anytime we're saying AI, that's what we really mean today. That's what we really mean by and large for B2B SaaS organizations and B2B technology organizations, is we're sitting on that left side. So lots of things inside. If we kind of click on that ANI piece and kind of just recategorize it back to AI, there's lots inside. If you're like most, you've either you haven't heard of what's on this left side, or if you have, you kind of stops at, I know this is a thing. The important part here is understanding that why we use AI is to teach a machine to do a specific task better and faster than a human being. The rest is really just more of the how. And I've found that whenever you're messaging around AI, the how and kind of how the sausage is made is really largely left for that kind of higher technical audience. A lot of when you're in marketing and sales conversations, you really want to elevate that conversation to the why. A lot of times what that means is that customers today are typically ready and able to talk about and understand AI at the level on the right, which is, are we using AI? Yes. What type? It's going to be typically either ML or Gen AI. And then this is really broad strokes, but again, trying to just overly simplify for the sake of our customer conversations. What type? ML, been around for a long time. All of you are probably already using it in some sort of capacity. And then the Gen AI is certainly the source of all of the hype cycle for today. Typically, those use cases today are you're using existing Gen AI, like LLMs like ChatGPT or Claude, to do X, Y, Z in your product. Oftentimes, it's text scaling based. So it's taking a lot of text and summarizing to a little, or a lot of inputs and summarizing into something compact. Or in the opposite, where you're taking a few inputs and a few like compact data points and then expanding that to more conversational text. So conceptually, that's where those conversations seem to end from a customer standpoint. Again, highly technical audiences notwithstanding. So don't number 1 then is make broad AI claims to customers. And the subtext here is, and don't do that and expect it will matter to them. So doing so is really only going to add to the noise. It causes eyes to roll. We see our friend Andy Raskin here with some tongue-in-cheek commentary. But really the signal is found by being understanding and catering to what your audiences actually care about. I love the point here. I heard in a recent AI and marketing podcast, which was no one really asked for AI. We don't inherently care about that. What we care about is outcomes. And I know Brian spoke to this in the session just before this. It's really about what are the best outcomes that I can get these days, and often those are now aided by AI. So if we turn attention to what does that mean in terms of how we might translate that and not just make broad claims, what that actually means is we want to go through this translation exercise that brings us more from feature-based messaging into more value-based messaging. Now, hopefully all of us and our marketing teams, our product marketing teams are doing this already generally, but AI is no exception for how you want to really be intentional in kind of going through this translation exercise that I've laid out here from left to right on moving that AI conversation from it's just making that broad claim of, yes, we use AI enabled, AI powered, and stopping the conversation there. Because ultimately what we need to do is anchor on that customer value, and that customer value has to go through this translation exercise. So it's not just that we're using that we're providing features that use some sort of ML or generative AI capabilities. It's that you're able, is what that capability unlocks for you. What is that new capability? What is that pain that gets solved? Who is the audience that gets solved for? And then translate that into the benefits that come from it. Oftentimes for business benefits, that is one of three things. That is either you are increasing revenue, you are decreasing cost, or you're creating time savings. So typically from a business benefit, it's one of those. It's important to also draw in from a benefit standpoint. What are those emotional benefits? What is it where it's like, if it's trust, it's transparency, or it's some of those emotional benefits of like, this allows me to have greater confidence in what I'm doing because I can take a whole lot of information and synthesize it into something that I know is compact and punchy and ready to go the other way around. So a lot of that, you want to make sure that you're covering off on customer value, anchoring there from a business benefit and from an emotional benefit. Because at the end, we're still talking to human beings as well, not just the businesses. Okay, so moving forward then, what is the next do and don't? The next don't is we don't want to say the same thing to everyone. Customers, we talked about that in the slide before and kind of how we want to try and anchor on that customer value. One other piece that I want to share here is there are customers, and you're probably already seeing this, if not, you will soon. There are customers who are starting to ask for things like, what's your AI roadmap? What are you using in terms of AI today? What are you using in terms of AI tomorrow? This is a fun new proxy for really asking the question of, are you innovating? If I buy from you, do I have the confidence that 6, 12, 18, 24 months from now, that I am still going to be happy with this decision to have bought from you because you are still innovating and giving me the latest and greatest technology that's going to come down 6, 12, 18 plus months from now. So that conversation, honestly, before the AI hype cycle started, that conversation was more about just general innovation. You had the ability to show a lot of things in your past and in your future roadmaps of how you're going to innovate. Now people are really starting to kind of myopically focus that conversation on AI and asking specifically for AI roadmaps. So it's very, very important that you have an answer. I recommend actually having a dedicated AI roadmap deck that you can provide to marketing and sales conversations, bringing that into things like webinars, like having that touch point where you can really start to answer that question. And I don't love the fact that this is the case in the market right now, but it's almost more important that you have an answer, less important of like what the answer is and all those things that you're doing. But if you have an answer, it gets that box checked for the customer of, sigh of relief. I trust that if I go with you and I buy from you, that you check the box that you are innovating and that I'm going to have an innovative solution 12 months from now. I can have confidence that I'm picking the right solution. Okay, so that's customers. your executive leadership team or your board is a little bit different, right? So we want to not say the exact same things to them as well. But some of this is in terms of internal messaging is really important, and making sure that we are communicating out and up in the right ways. So for ELT and board, it can be a little more binary, right? Where it can be a little more of are we using AI, right? Can we tell our investors or the street that we are? So that incentive is really, again, translating to like being more cutting edge, riding that AI wave, being able to check the box from a validation purpose. The interesting piece here is that there is a narrative in the community right now that if you are not using AI, that your market valuation could drop upwards of 40%. I'll say that again. If there's a narrative, especially in any sort of technology-based organization, that if you are not using AI, your market valuation could drop upwards of 40% just by not using or saying that you are using AI. So we want to be careful and not get over our skis, not paint pictures that aren't true. But at the same time, it's important to understand that from an executive standpoint, from a board standpoint, where a lot of that incentive comes from driving market valuation, that AI narrative, that's kind of the underlying reason why we may be feeling so much of that pressure internally to try and AI wash everything, is because we want to try and make sure that doesn't have a negative, that not doing that has a negative impact on market valuation. Okay, lastly, and that's related to kind of the investor relations community. So IR, you can kind of be bucketed in with ELT and the board, but it's interesting because with them, and especially AR, like your analyst relations community, they're going to start to care actually more than your board, more than your customers, about what specific kinds of AI are you using and how is it being used in a novel way to solve customer problems. AR, your analyst relations coverage, they're going to want to see this. They're going to want to care and understand, and again, see that translation exercise of how that tech is turning into customer value. And what this also means too is that technical diligence. The best thing to do in terms of bringing that technical, more of the technical depth to an AR audience is going to mean you're going to want to bring in your friends in product management and engineering and data science. The idea is to match technical prowess with technical prowess. So make sure that you guard against, again, where you're having like marketing and sales level conversations with technical folks who need technical answers. So in summary, right, for all of these audiences, again, just make sure we're not saying the exact same thing to everyone, because their incentives and what they care about is coming from a different place. Okay, starting to get to the home stretch here. So this was a bonus one. I mentioned this came from a larger presentation, so I'm calling this kind of don'ts 2.1 and 2.2. I'll move quickly here, but all to say, don't claim to be an AI company unless you actually are, right? Like OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Jasper, like Mistral, these are AI products and companies. Be careful and intentional with make your claims around being an AI company versus having AI enabled or powered products and innovations. Secondly, careful on the renaming piece, right? So like, especially as I think there's starting in the investor community to start to see some of that bubble soften, or start to move towards the bubble is growing a little bit in that investor community, right? Be careful here in terms of like making some big flag plants, like changing your website URL, changing company or product names to AI, and just AI washing everything. We do want to try and reserve that for AI naming where it is actually using AI. Hopefully that one's an obvious one, but especially too where it can define that's how the product is differentiated. And where you're specifically wanting to try and draw attention and that perception that that's where you are innovating. So when you're using that AI in terms of a naming standpoint, again, just be very intentional there and use that to your advantage where it's not going to be out in front over your skis. Okay. Last to do here is we want to demystify and remove some fear, uncertainty, and doubt. As Brian had mentioned actually in the last session, is there are some folks who this is more scary than anything, right? You look at more regulated industries, financial services, public sector, areas where they work with a lot of PII. A lot of that, this can be more scary than good. And so what I would say, two do's in terms of how to demystify and kind of remove that FUD is to focus on transparency and trust. Transparency in the terms of opening up how it works, what data is used and what data is not used is sometimes just as important. And make sure that you're tying all of this back to the value provided. It is not like the transparency of how you are using AI, how you're using ML or Gen AI is, if you can tie that back to the value and have their brains centered on the value, then the how becomes less important. The other piece I would say to focus on here is from a trust standpoint, and this removes some of that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Where you want to be very close to your friends in legal and data privacy. You want to ensure that you have all of your ducks in a row in terms of what you are communicating, so that if anyone wants to double or triple click into your privacy and regulations, they have content to look at. Secondly, there is, as these LLMs also start to be able, to become more pervasive in our technologies, it's increasingly critical to communicate when it's true, which is hopefully a lot of the time, that their data is not used for training purposes, because a lot of times that translates back into privacy issues where their data is used in ways that they didn't necessarily consent or doesn't provide that customer value, right? It's providing value for others. So there's option. You can earn trust by being explicit with where your data is or is not used in training. And then lastly, and this is kind of a nice to have, is working with your product teams and deriving a productized ability to control, to limit, or even toggle on and off the use of AI. So especially if you're marketing and selling into those sorts of industries where there is a strong fear component, where there is higher regulation, there's higher use of PII. There's increased desire that we're seeing in the market to productize the ability to throttle or even turn off the use of AI. So to the degree that you can do that, obviously that's not a quick and easy thing to do, but if that's something where you can get that put into your product, then that's a critical piece to draw through into your positioning and messaging, to be able to, again, remove that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Is like, there's all these reasons why you should actually love this, and then we're tying this back to value. But at the end of the day, if that still leaves you with fear and doubt, you have the ability to control, throttle, or turn off that AI. So that can be a great value to your customers. Okay, that is at 24 minutes. So I'll quickly open it up and look and see if there's any questions in the comments. And then otherwise, please reach out on LinkedIn. There's my email at Demandbase, and thank you all very much for having me. Looking for questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Todd. Appreciate that. One thing I did want to ask you as you were going through this, we could almost reverse engineer that for our listeners here and saying, what are some of the red flags that either you look for or that you've seen when evaluating AI tools, that you would say, hey, these are things you want to avoid, like even giving the impression of having these red flags in these AI tools or softwares?
Yeah, to me, the transparency piece is super important, and what I'm looking for in any of my own tooling where I'm kind of sitting on the other side, right? So much of and a lot of that comes back to ML models as well, right? Like there's synthesis of data, and it's just these large just data lakes, and then out pops a single answer. And oftentimes that comes with an inherent need to just trust that answer. And if you're lacking some of that transparency around like how you actually got to that answer, then that can actually create that creates to me that doesn't fulfill my needs. Like part of what I want to see is a little bit of like show me the math, like kind of show me your homework of how you got there. So I'll give you only because it's super top of mind is I'll give you an example really from a demand-based standpoint.
Yeah.
So we have functionality where we use it's the core of our AI usage and MLs, where we bring in tons of third-party data, first-party data. We enrich all of that. We have just this massive collection of data, and then we ask it questions. We basically have tuned our models where we can ask it questions like, based on all of these signals coming in, intent signals, firmographics, technographics, what accounts should I target? What people are doing what? Who are the buying groups inside of that? So if one person is doing it, who are the 5 other people I should be talking to? And a lot of times that's where it stops. And in our market, in our like kind of account-based marketing is like, okay, here's the accounts, the contacts, and the buying groups that I should go target. What's missing there is the transparency of what are they doing? Why is that a high value target for me? And from an account and contact and buying group standpoint, how does it match to like, show me the homework on what are they doing from an engagement standpoint, and how are you showing me that they're a fit for my ICP and what I'm looking for? So to me, it's not just giving the answer and kind of having just a black box of here's the answer, go do it, but being able to double click in and show the homework, show the rationale for how it got to that answer.
Excellent. Well, Todd, thank you so much for joining us at the AI Revenue Summit. Really appreciate hearing from you and the insights and wisdom that you had to share with us. So again, thank you, Todd, VP of Product and Marketing at Demandbase.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you all of you for participating and joining with us here during this live broadcasting of the presentations for the AI Revenue Summit. If you go and visit the AIRevenueSummit.com website, event site, you will see all presentations are available on demand. You'll also see the infographic that includes some of the information that was brought up during the keynote behind how AI adoption is taking place across multiple industries and what that means. Where's the revenue being found? What are people using? How is it affecting the work? How is it affecting their go-to-market strategy? So take a look at that, free to download again at AIRevenueSummit.com. There you can also find the award winners of each of the 4 categories that was presented earlier in the session. Afterwards, we will present a QR code in the video to get your feedback. We do these once a quarter with different topics and categories. And so we'd like to get your feedback of how we can improve and better serve you as the audience in delivering valuable information into the industry around the goals and objectives that we each have. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the recorded events.